welcome everybody to the planning board meeting on July 15th, 2019. First, I'm going to ask the board members if I can get a motion to approve the minutes from the July 1st meeting.
I wasn't when I watched the meeting.
Okay.
Does that count? I
Well-
can vote?
We'll just.
Yep.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, ignore
Second.
me.
All right, thank you. Everyone read them or watched them on TV. What happens is if you can be absent, but then you have to watch the whole meeting on TV alone at your house. That's why most people don't like to miss a meeting, because it's dreadful, watching ourselves on TV.
Oh, I don't know, I kinda liked it.
You do? Good. So,
Put you right to
so I have a motion and I have a second.
Who
All
was the
those,
second? I'm sorry.
Wally?
Wally?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I abstain.
Thank you. I don't show any filings,
Nope.
and I show no Form A plans. So the first item on the agenda is from Kayla Estates, 211 Boston Road, and they've requested to withdraw. And how that works is I need someone to make a motion to allow the applicant, Kayla Estates, 211 Boston Road, to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay, I'll make the motion to allow Kayla Estates to withdraw without prejudice.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
And what that means is if they withdraw but you kept prejudice in place, they couldn't refile within 2 years. Without prejudice, they can refile at any point. That's not gonna happen in this case. What you'll likely see is a refiling for one retreat lot and a standard lot, and that's it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It's unanimous. Correspondence. We have some correspondence from Winchell Drive, a subdivision discussion.
No.
Aye.
Alright, if you could just tell the board about yourself and then just ask them the questions you have and we'll give you whatever input they can.
My name is Brian Iderola. I live at 85 Leland Hill Road. Thank you for your time this evening. I had a couple of very quick questions regarding a parcel of land, I hope you don't mind sharing, on Winchell Drive on the southeast side of Sutton.
Put it on the screen for you, but.
Sorry about that, but sweet. This second sheet shows the existing gravel driveway that's in place. Okay, so I had a couple of inquiries. The first one was whether or not the board would entertain the idea of cordoning off a parcel of land close to the current end of the cul-de-sac, and extending the road length to, this would be the parcel of land and potentially a driveway, extending the road approximately 250 feet. So that was question number one.
Okay. Brian?
Yes.
Yeah. How it works. Our names are in front of us.
Okay.
And thank you for coming in. You're doing a great job. Typically, anyone can come in, as you have. I'll ask board members to tell you what they think. It's not a vote, so you know which way the wind's blowing. And some board members sometimes say, I'm confused. So you know there's some confusion. And then after that, if there's anyone that's here that has 2 cents they want to throw at us, that's good. And then we'll come back to the board, and I sense that, I think then that way you find out, you get accomplished what you want with each question.
Okay.
All right?
Can I interject
Yep.
first?
Yeah, sure.
Just ask a few base questions for the record. Alright, so Winchell Drive, this is Winchell Drive's aerial right now. Okay, so you have
Yeah.
Lincoln Road, and then Winchell Drive is a right, so Lincoln Road is a right turn, second after you go across 146, it's a second right turn off
Mhm.
Central Turnpike. Come down Lincoln Road, Winchell Drive is a right off of that. Right now, you've got these 5 or 6 homes right along Winchell Drive, the previous kind of cul-de-sac area, and then a little extension. This is all part of the roadway layout. You're at about 900 and something feet already, right here. As was stated, then you had a continuation, and there's that house that you see if you're heading north on 146,
Okay.
between Purgatory and Central Turnpike on your right, there's that house right on the highway. That's this house right here.
Which is that? That's on parcel 18?
That is on parcel 18. So there's the house that's, and you can see the little outline here.
Yeah.
Literally sitting just inside the right-of-way line, or just outside the right-of-way line for Route 146. So this is 146. So that's one of the first kind of things to think about. The layout is already over 900 feet. Your dead-end road length is 500 feet.
This is a road that exists.
Right, I mean, I can't tell you definitively, but perhaps, Purgatory Road was cut off by the highway construction at some point, or whatever. But this road layout exists to here, and then it's just driveway, private,
Drive.
from there, right?
So it's not a road.
It's a driveway.
From this point
It's a driveway.
out,
Okay.
it's a driveway,
All right.
okay?
Yep.
So now, just for the record, cause I wanna make sure I understand for this. So this one is just kind of a picture of what's there now, right? Okay, that's what's there now.
Yeah,
So there's the road layout ends here,
Mhm.
and that's the driveway that goes out to the house. So road layout ends there, driveway out to the house.
The town plows this road? It's a.
One shoal out through the cul-de-sac.
Oh, to the okay, good.
Alright,
And
so
those
can-
two lots exist, 18 and 19?
Yep, 18 and
And are they
19.
are they commonly owned?
Right here and right here, I believe they are, right? These are commonly owned, this one, and then this one. These ones that you showed are commonly owned, right?
Oh, okay.
These ones are all commonly owned. Okay, so now, you were saying you were, on this one, what are we looking at?
Looking at, delineating a single building lot
Uh-huh.
with a driveway entering here.
So this lot would come all the way, it would be all of this area here?
It would just be,
That
Yeah.
L shaped?
yeah.
Oh, okay, this one, right here. So let me just mark it up, so we can kinda see it visually better.
Yes.
Okay, so the proposed lot kinda starts close to the end of the layout, but you're saying it's 250 feet from the existing roadway that exists on the ground?
Yes, to
Okay.
what I'm proposing is the
Right,
driveway.
so from the end of the layout to the edge of this lot line, so from here, all the way to the driveway is 250.
Yeah.
Okay. But the lot line is just a little bit, the lot starts just a little bit off.
It's basically at about the intersection. Isn't just
Okay.
a sketch, but.
Okay, alright, so that's
If
the
it is
lot
in
he's
your-
talking about, okay? So this is where the layout ends right now, this line right here. So the lot would go here along the driveway and the driveway into it. So one shall drive layout here, lot coming off, driveway into it. So the edge of that lot is along the existing driveway.
Yes.
Which is just a driveway, not a right of way, nothing else. Okay. And this was just to show the 3 lots that are kinda owned together? Okay, those are all owned by the same people. Alright, I've got that straight for the minutes.
Thanks.
And hopefully for anybody sitting here. Okay,
Okay.
proceed.
Well, Miriam, what do you think?
Wait, don't you have 2 questions?
No,
I
he,
have a next level, a next tier of, well, the first question is, would you extend the public road up to the driveway? Extend Winchell Road?
And make it a public road and not a driveway.
Right, I
Okay.
mean, I would have to build the road, but
Well, to
would you?
do an
would it-
additional lot, he would have to do a subdivision plan that would pull out Winchell Drive further. whether it would be public or private would be decided by town meeting at some point. It can't be public unless town meeting accepts the extension out of town meeting. But it could be like Gilmore Drive. Gilmore Drive has the public section, and now Gilmore Drive has the private section that you guys approve through subdivision control. Whether they'll ever go to town meeting, they didn't intend to go to town meeting and have that adopted. So he would have to do the same thing to get through at least the 250 feet of that lot frontage. We'd have to pull out the subdivision. So it's kinda, you're already pretty long, but would you go just a little bit longer for one additional lot, or no? Or are you, 500 feet is the dead end road length, we're already over it? Or would you need some additional info from fire, or highway, or whatever?
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
It's
good-
the-
It's the first
the-
time, so we're all confused, but that's why we're asking questions.
You've been haying, Bob?
Yeah.
The gray stuff, is that water?
That's wetlands.
Okay, because on one of them, it clearly goes by it, and on the other one, it goes right over
Yeah,
it.
it's, the driveway, forgive the crude
It's okay.
driveway, but, it's close. I
Okay.
think this is a little bit more accurate than that.
I would hope so. Okay,
There's currently a gas pipeline that crosses
saw
the
that.
property.
it's there. So, yeah, it's a safety issue, that's my understanding, right? And even if it was a driveway off of the road, that's a long way. Yeah, it's a tough one.
What do you think, Scott?
I don't think it seems within our regulations and purview to extend this public road. I was on the board, I'm sure, when Winchell Drive was put in here, and I don't remember how it got 900 feet. So to go another 250, 300, whatever, doesn't look like something on the onset that I would get behind.
My concern would, I think alluded to and mentioned would be, a safety issue. I mean, you're already 900 feet, now you add another 300 or 400 feet. What do you do if a couple trees go down and the fire has to get in there? Or, you only got one way in and one way out.
Access.
So there's no loop around or whatever.
My knee-jerk initial reaction is, that, the only way that I can see you'll get access to this property, and be able to put in a driveway is to, at your expense, build a road that the town would accept. If you hit the lottery, I guess you could do that and sell a house lot, but it looks like it'd be a pretty expensive, venture to build a road that the town would accept. But if you choose to do that,
So are you good with them going
it had, the road,
over 900 feet?
well,
Your regs say 500-foot dead end. In this case, you've already got a 900-foot dead end, and he wants to add
he's
another
gonna,
250
he's gonna
onto
build
it.
a road and there'll be a cul-de-sac and the fire department, and I'm thinking everyone's gonna have to say, sure, but you're gonna have to build, a place for the fire truck to turn around,
So you'd
for
be
the
open
plow
to
to
it
turn around.
for safety.
If all the boards approve it, whether it's 500, 600, or 700 for me, as long as the fire department and all the safety people are fine with it, but it's not a driveway. It can't be a driveway, it's, you never get in. So, my initial reaction.
I mean, I would have the same sentiments of just, emergency vehicle access. I had driven down there and, up to the cul-de-sac, it's a paved cul-de-sac, and then I went a little bit further, but, pretty bumpy little turns and big rocks and, so. If 500 is our limit, that certainly is going almost double it. But again, if they approved it to all the I mean,
Just, because you're new and you haven't been there.
Yep.
Ray, you were here though, I think on our longest one. Our longest waiver to date is about 680.
Where was that, Jen?
That was Hawthorne Drive, we had, Low Estates off Fuller Road, and we let them go to 7-something, not to get an additional lot, but to get the cul-de-sac at a less of a slope.
No, I'm not a fan because it's over the 500 feet.
Good. That helps you?
It does.
All right, second question.
Question number 2. The cost of putting in a public grade road is prohibitive to this next layout, but if I were to slice up 4 lots, each better than 2 acres, and put in a circular road, again, because of the cost of building a paved public road, is there an avenue of consideration such that after Winchell Drive, this could be a gravel road? Is that something the town entertains?
I would doubt it, from my experience and seeing
Bill, you
issues.
get to,
Still
you get to start this
additional.
time, Bill.
There's
Well-
still an additional X.
Well, it has to be, even if it doesn't get approved by the town or plan to, it has to be up to town specs, which I would think is the same as trying to get it approved by the town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that's the one we're looking at now. So again, here's the road layout. So how far are you going from the end of the layout to where it starts to go out?
I think that
That's-
was 375 feet to the beginning of the one-way,
A loop.
loop.
Right. So you still have that initial problem that you're taking a 900-foot something long and adding on now 300 and something. Definitely at this point, it's no longer a dead-end roadway. But yeah, I haven't seen one approved in 20 years I've been here that's gravel, but that's your purview. You have to waive all the bituminous requirements.
But I wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't do that?
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree. I mean, it still seems like there's a long distance there, and based on the history that I've read about so far, it doesn't seem like the town, would probably vote for that, and get the approvals, so there might not be, you might really have to check with different
Especially if you
groups
seek
first to see, before you waste too much time on it, that would be my opinion,
And money.
and money, yeah, right.
I can't remember, approving a gravel road, sitting on this board. That's something new. You have to do a lot to convince me that it was something we should be approving and then asking all the, members of, the town's boards, and safety personnel to say this is the future of Sutton. We'll do gravel roads instead of paved roads, and they'll be private, and someone will plow them. It'll take some convincing for me.
Okay.
What do you think?
I share the same opinion probably with Bob. I haven't encountered this issue prior to me serving on this board, but I just see a plethora of questions. I'm sure it's in the best interest of Sutton going forward if we do it for you, and we have, somebody else comes in, and we do it, we have to do it for them.
And, we've gone through issues where we have private, we're plowing, should we plow as public, and they're stone, and they're gravel, and they're falling apart, they're terrible to even deal with, so to walk into that and potentially create that doesn't seem like the thing to do.
Marion?
Yep. Kind of going with the flow on this one.
That is it. All right, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Good job.
Glad you came in.
Want us to keep a copy or take it?
Good luck, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I just need that one copy that I marked up. That's that set, I think, right there. Awesome. That's it, that's all I need.
Thank you.
Okay, 7:05, planning board time. We have a continued hearing for 125 to 135 Singletary Ave. And we saw this at the last meeting. Gianni's here.
easel his grown legs and walk.
Oh, I think it's,
We got
is
it.
it, this one here.
So good evening, my name is Byron Andrews, Andrews Survey and Engineering. I'm representing Walters Mills LLC and Timothy LaBelle. The property is on Singletary Ave. I made some reduced size copies. There is one typo in there I wasn't able to correct before the council meeting, and that's the address over here on the other side of the road. Mylar has been corrected to say 114 Singletary Ave, not 1144. So, please let me know if I'm being redundant, because I wasn't at this last meeting. So some of what I may be saying may be already gone over, but I'll just cover just to kind of catch up. So the property's in two different ownerships here. The separate ownerships are represented here in green. This is Mr. LaBelle's property. This is Felters Mills. So what we would like to do is to create two buildable lots out of this property. In order to do so, we're taking a strip from Mr. LaBelle to give us conforming frontage on the south side. We're giving Mr. LaBelle land on the north side, so he is giving up about, I believe, almost 12 feet of frontage. He's gaining 70 feet of frontage, and the depth is going to be the same as his current lot. This gives us two lots with conforming frontage. We are using a common driveway to access this lot. We believe it's possible to access this lot through this wetland here, or probably preferably over here. However, in order to minimize the disturbance and just for the convenience of all involved, we're planning to build a common driveway coming off the existing driveway, which goes to this house here. We'll come off this and go up here. Maximum slope is 10%. The town requirement is 12%.
Go.
Okay. The width of the right of way would be approximately 30 feet. It will be a little wider in front. The design of the driveway is for an 18-foot wide driveway, and we have a driveway detail right here as to the construction.
Can you do the common ownership again? I kinda missed that.
The green lines, and if you need another copy, they're a little folded now, but everything in green is the separation of the common ownership. Mr. LaBelle is this rectangle right here,
Which is green.
which is green.
Yep.
And Felters Mills is on the north side, wraps around the back, and is on the south side,
Which is green.
which is green.
So it's all, is it all proposed to be part of the same development, if you will, or is that square out of it?
Yeah, Mr. LaBelle is gonna retain this property. We're only
Okay.
including Mr. LaBelle because we need 11.57 feet of frontage, which we're getting from him.
Yep.
With this strip. And the Felters Mills land will convey a 70-foot strip on
Okay.
the other side.
Okay, I understand now.
Okay.
It was all green to me.
Okay. Good.
Byron, I don't see the, wells and septics on Mr. LaBelle's and on 125. Are they on there, and/or if they're not on there yet, are they affected in any way by the common drive and the shift in the lot lines?
Wells and septic are on for 125. We didn't have the information from Mr. LaBelle.
Okay, can you point to roughly where they are? I can't see.
Sure, let me just get something to point here. The existing septic system is right here, highlighted here in red.
Oh, I see it now, in little tiny letters.
Oh, yeah.
Here it is.
And the existing well is right here.
Oh, yep, right under the edge. Got it. So that common driveway won't affect either of those things. And, the only reason we wanted those shown on Mr. LaBelle's is to make sure that the shift of the lot line doesn't put a well or a septic in a setback area where it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't believe so, because Mr. LaBelle's house is right over here.
Mhm.
There's a wet area right here, so, I'm sure Mr. LaBelle's stuff is closer to his house then.
So if you're confident on that, then the board can act not knowing that, but that will have to be approximately located before you would come back with a Form A plan to have this actually signed after the appeal period's run.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
At the first meeting, good job, it's real clear, to me.
Yeah.
Are there any, the common drives make me nervous, but people buy it. It always sounds great when we're here, and then people come back years later, because there's, that we tend to have them on our agenda way too often, so. But we have to allow them. One of the comments that was made, at the last hearing was about how close the road was gonna be to the existing house. But there are no rules and regulations about that. There's nothing that we have to address, so, yeah, that's.
Yeah, and, driveways, if you think of people's own driveways, obviously we're talking about someone else using that area. But, it's not uncommon to have a driveway, close to the house. Of course, the end of the driveway usually is at the house.
Right, yeah, this one goes by, which is different.
Mhm.
But that's the person who's gonna own that first lot, the lower one on that map is, gonna have to realize that the neighbors will be going by pretty close. Hopefully they'll get along.
Yeah.
In the land swap, makes the frontage right, so I don't have any more questions. Are there any questions from any board members? Any questions from anyone in the public or comments? And since I see none, if someone would like to make a motion, to grant this common drive special permit,
You have a memo
with
dated
some good,
June 27th from me, where I list minimum conditions of approval that I would, recommend.
I don't have those.
Here, you want it? Here.
There you go. I need a motion first. If someone wants to make a motion to grant this common drive special permit.
I make a motion that we,
Close the public hearing, then?
No, some boards do. We leave the public hearing open through the vote in case we wanna take input on the conditions. There are some towns that don't wanna hear anybody else's opinion while they're doing their conditions, but we like to sometimes, so we leave it open.
okay, I make a motion that we, accept this for 125-131 Singletary Avenue, common driveway in Form A, dated June 25. Is that
Okay.
okay?
So you're gonna
You
grant
want me
the-
to read this?
I need a
minimum?
second first.
Second.
Well, you need, add the conditions to your motion.
Yeah,
Right,
with the
do it right
following,
now.
with the minimum conditions of approval, which will now be stated. One, prior to commencement of construction on the common driveway or any house to be served by the common driveway, the permit owner shall record a plan for the common driveway and such instruments as are necessary to establish easements providing for use of the common driveway and a restriction burdening all lots served by the common driveway. The said common driveway shall remain private in perpetuity No parking will be allowed on the common drive, and all roadway maintenance, snow plowing, and rubbish collection shall be the landowner's responsibility. Excuse me. The plan and instruments shall be approved by the planning board and shall be recorded with proof of such recording provided to the planning board prior to use of the common driveway to serve more than one lot. 2, prior to commencement of construction on any house to be served by the common driveway, the private driveways branching off the common drive shall be reviewed and approved in each case by highway, fire, and police to ensure emergency vehicle access. 3, prior to commencement of construction on the common driveway or any house to be served by the common driveway, the applicant must secure any permits and/or written permission required from the Massachusetts Highway Department to remove public shade trees to achieve the required site distance and provide a copy of this permit/permission to the planning department, or the board may want to hold approval until this permission can be obtained. 4, underground utilities shall be provided on this common driveway. 5, an occupancy permit for any structure accessed via the common driveway shall not be granted until the street numbers of the lots serviced by the common driveway are clearly posted on a single permanent post at the street in a form approved by the planning board so as to be visible from both directions of travel, and also posted on a permanent post at the point in which each private driveway splits from the common driveway. Such signage shall be purchased from the Sutton Highway Department and installed by the applicant in a location agreed upon by the Sutton Highway Department. 6, an occupancy permit for any structure accessed via the common driveway shall not be granted until the common driveway site work is 100% complete. In order to be considered complete, the design engineer must submit a stamped letter certifying the common driveway site work has been constructed as shown on the approved plans.
Thank you. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion from the board members? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I abstain. I
Okay.
wasn't here at the last meeting.
Okay.
4, 0, 1.
It's
Okay.
actually, we got 5 sitting members and an associate, so I think you're still at
Okay.
5. And then
5,
we'll just
0, 1.
determine eligibility from there, cause you signed in, so you should be good.
Okay.
Okay?
I need a
Now
motion.
you can do that motion to close.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm not gonna do it.
You got it. Okay, somebody close the public hearing.
I need a motion.
I
to
move we
close.
close the public hearing.
Thank you. Need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Marion. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I abstain.
5, 0, 1. Can't count. Thank you. Good luck. Good job.
He's still standing up there, he's got more to do.
We had, at 7:10, we had a public hearing scheduled for 352 Manchog Road that has been continued. No, it hasn't been continued.
Here, not this one. That one will need to be, because after he does the presentation,
Oh, that's, okay, I'm reading the note here.
because we have an outstanding legal issue.
Then we have a 7:30. I apologize, we're already 20 minutes behind. It's not easy up here. Keep us on the schedule. I have great intentions. You need training. All right. Give us 1 second. Where did the minutes go? I want to sign the minutes. I didn't get my folder.
Yeah, obviously today.
Yep, somebody can read that.
There you go.
please.
All right, Bill, you wanna read the legal ad? Why not?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
All right, you got it?
No. In accordance with the provisions of the Sutton zoning bylaws, section 4C, site plan review, the planning board will hold a hearing on the the application of the Manchog Trust, George Fenari trustee, Sutton, Mass. The applicant proposed to use the existing structure at 352 Manchog Road for 3 apartments and a cafe/restaurant to include parking upgrades. The hearing will be held at the Sutton Town Hall, 3rd floor, Monday, July 15th at 7:10 p.m.
Thank you. All right, welcome aboard.
Nice to be here.
All right.
My name is Tom Lesser, and I'm an attorney, and I represent 352 Manchog Trust. And I'm here with Dan Hazen from Carrere and Howden, who's prepared the site plan that he's gonna go over with you. I'm here because, and I think you all have a letter from me, or perhaps not, in which case I'll give you a letter.
They have it.
They have it, okay.
They have it. Nobody's read it, but they have it.
Okay, there was an issue raised concerning, well, to back up a second, as the ad said, the intention is to use an existing building. It's a building that was most recently an American Legion building, goes back to a school building in 1899 in the town of Sutton. And there's an existing driveway which has been in existence for decades, and certainly for more than 25 years, because we attached a Google map to our letter showing the driveway's been in existence for 25 years. And our intention is to continue to use that driveway. And it's our belief that we're the owners of that driveway. There was an adjoining parcel, and the assessors have it as owners unknown. And a portion of that driveway is part of that portion, owners unknown. But we used it more than 20 years. We own it by adverse possession. And in my memo, I also point out, and this is an issue that lawyers talk about all the time, which is what authority or what role do planning boards hold in deciding title to land? And intuitively, lawyers say, well, that's an issue between other parties, it doesn't have to do with planning boards. And I cite you 2 appellate cases. And I cite you an appeals court case which specifically states that, quote, the planning board is not authorized to determine the existence of easements or settle other property disputes. If and when the easement is shown to exist, persons having standing to prevent obstruction of the easement will have ample opportunity to protect their rights. And then I cite a case, which is a land court case in 2007. The case I just cited was in 1987. And in 2007, a planning board denied approval because the applicant had not shown that it would be able to, quote, use the roadways planned to reach the site. And the land court said that was incorrect based on that first case that I just read. And they said someone could later challenge the right to the developer to pass over those rights, but that's a third-party action and should be left to a third party. And so, based on that, I'm asking the board to decide that's not an issue, and then have Mr. Hazen go forward and present you with the site plan, and it's been reviewed, I think, by Graves Engineering. It was reviewed by all the town bodies before that, and Mr. Hazen's able to talk about all the issues which have been raised.
Good job.
I did talk to Mr. Hazen or Attorney Hazen on the phone just briefly, and let him know that when I got his opinion, it would be forwarded to council, because there's not a member sitting on the board that is a land use attorney, which is of course his specialty. And nor am I. So that we did get this earlier today, and it has been forwarded to town council. So we will have to continue this hearing, waiting for the opinion of council. But in the meantime, we should definitely proceed with the site plan and addressing various waivers that are necessary and the issues relative to the site, and then hopefully at the next meeting, have the opinion of council and be able to move forward.
That's fine. I'm quite
Yeah.
confident that the law is
Yep.
correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not confident. Mind you, sometimes I have questions, but in this particular case, I don't really have any questions.
And we appear to be confused. I thought I missed something, but we just got this today, so I just got here. If it came today, we don't have a chance to read it, and that's why it looked like we didn't know
And
what
that's
they
why
were
I
talking
put it in
about.
some
Good,
way
okay,
for you.
all right. Great. Do a good job.
I'm Stan Hazen, I'm with Gary here in Howland.
Good.
The existing site is located on Manchog Road, next to the Mumford River. It's an existing building, it's been there, it was a town school originally, it was most recently a VFW, as Attorney Lesser mentioned.
American Legion.
To access the site, there's an existing paved driveway that comes up in grade, and then the paving stops up in this area, and then it opens up into a big gravel parking lot. There's no demarcation, there's no parking that's marked out anywhere. The site's about 1.6 acres, and what the proposed plan is to extend the paving around the building, install double catch basin to a stormwater treatment unit, subsurface infiltration chambers, which will infiltrate the 2 and the 10-year storm. The 100-year storm during heavy rains will overflow a little bit out into the back. The existing site flows off, comes down this way, flows off this way and down towards the Mumford River. There's no existing treatment of any of the stormwater that leaves. All the suspended solids just travel as they want. So by paving it, we'll be able to reduce any impacts to the wetlands and anything off-site. We're proposing 38 parking spaces. 6 of those spaces will be for the 3 apartments which are located in this area. The other 36 spaces, 2 of which are handicapped, will be located throughout for the cafe and restaurant. I apologize, in the last plan I sent you, the layer that I had on there for the pavement markings was off. That'll be revised when I make my revisions for grades. Traffic flow will come up, go around the building, back out. There'll be landscaping proposed along the front and the side of the building. There's one wall-mounted sign proposed right here. We did get a review letter back from Graves Engineering today, and there's some minor housekeeping issues in there. There was nothing in there that was a standout major issue. They had a couple of questions about turning radiuses for the largest fire truck, which I believe is gonna be the Grafton Tower that responds mutual aid. And we were able to prepare a turning radius plan showing that the tower truck can make it all the way around the building, back out. One of his other comments is I need to just check the grades at the intersection, but I'm confident that those will meet for the tower to be able to access up the existing driveway that's done that. We've gone in front of Conservation Commission, and they were waiting on Graves' review. We're going back before Conservation on Wednesday. We were before ZBA last Thursday. We have a site walk tomorrow, I believe, with ZBA out here. And
We're back August the 1st before the ZBA.
the site falls under the Riverfront Protection Act, and through conservation and DEP, we're able to minimize areas that were existing, that were disturbed. We're proposing those areas to be loamed, seeded, and allowed to revegetate back to their natural condition. So we're actually decreasing the amount of impact to the riverfront area, so we'll be able to, reforest and revegetate those areas that are existing gravel. So overall, conservation didn't have any, issues, again, waiting on Graves' review. The site is serviced by town water and town sewer, so we'll hopefully continue to use that. Questions?
Thank you. Good job. Any questions from board members?
I'm quite, where is the entrance to the cafe or restaurant?
It will be
Up there?
right up here.
Okay, and the parking will be on the other
It'll be
side?
on
Okay.
this side. It's, again, we're trying to stay out, the riverfront line is right here, and the slopes are so steep that we're trying to work within the footprint that we have, so that we're not disturbing any additional area. We're not trying to expand or work outside of what's already disturbed
It's
in the
already
area.
there.
So,
This is in the village district?
yes.
Does the, so when this gets paved and graded appropriately, all the water will be caught and go into the new catch basins and the new water filtration?
The water from the back of the building, from here, the new paved area,
Yeah?
will go to the rear to this. The front of the building, where the existing area that's always gone down the
Okay.
driveway, will continue to go down the driveway.
And on the top side there?
Here, this will be what used to, this area used to all sheet flow off in that direction. Now it's gonna be contained. We're able to revegetate this area here.
Okay.
So whatever was here is, it's gonna have a little less runoff due to the
Okay, but that
Not
won't
being-
get captured into the,
It won't be captured, but there, with the right now it's all gravel. So it just basically just flows right off the gravel. The majority of it will be captured and directed back to the double catch basin.
So there's no basin in that area, but you've got vegetation that'll
Slow the water flow
flow,
and,
and then you have a berm on that edge
yes.
of pavement.
Yeah, there's a big cut berm around the site to contain the water within the
New
pavement.
veg and berm.
Any other questions from board members?
I know there was, just looking through some of the, approvals that you've already gone through with the fire and the police and some of the initial comments, I know the Board of Health did bring up briefly about whether there would be a need to secure adequate water for a cafe. Is that something that,
We're looking into the size of the water services there right now.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you know off the top of your head.
cause it sounds like they thought it was for a single household line only, so
Yeah.
that the cafe would need more water possibly, I'm just kinda reading it.
We need to go to the water department and check with them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's key. You will have to show the location of the water service line and service at least approximately, and provide correspondence from the Manchog Water District that they can serve the uses that are shown in this building, including the fire club. It's a relatively small district. They pump less than 30,000 gallons a day. They had previously not commented on a tea shop that was proposed and approved in the adjacent building. So I don't anticipate any issues, but we have to have that right.
Yeah, we will get that for you.
Any other questions from board members? Any questions from the public? I'm happy to see it back on the rolls, if you will,
I
'cause
think it'll be a great asset to the town.
we, certainly, I miss the VFW, but they weren't doing a good job. And that's why the building, lays dormant. And we don't, and that's not a good situation. And for the town of Sutton that's proud of its villages, we don't have a downtown. Every village has to have something that's a little bit special, and for me personally, I think, if this is done right, it might just be what Nanchog needs, is something special and a shot in the arm.
Well, it certainly saved the building with cars.
was actually, built in, just because I'm a history geek and I love the village. This building was actually built in 3 pieces, and the last addition was put on in 1857.
The
And
last one.
The last one, and Samuel Clements, the architect for Mechanics Hall in Worcester, was the architect who was charged with that last addition, and then tying in the architecture of the first 2 pieces to that rear piece and making it the beautiful, kind of cohesive building you have now.
Question.
Wow.
It's an awesome, awesome building. I just wanted Concom to let us cut down all the trees so you could see it on the hill like you used to. Cause it was the schoolhouse for all the, I mean, this village was, BB&R Knight built quite a few properties within the village, over 100 of them. And people were immigrated down from Canada to work in the textile mills. The mill that still stands was one of the first fruit of the loom mills. And that school was positioned at a high spot in the village, so anybody who was working at Mill 1, which currently still exists, Mill 2, which was just behind and to the left of the post office, and Mill 3, which stood where the Manchog Fire Station is now, at breaks, you could basically walk outside and look to the hill where your children were being schooled, if they weren't in one of the 2 parochial schools, believe it or not, farther down on South Main, or down, South Main Street. But at whatever mill you were working in, you could come outside and look to the school and see your kids up on the hill, because that was, you can see the old pictures on the wall in my office, fully exposed and fully visible to all the mills around. So you could look to where your kids were at all, anytime during the day. So, this was known, Manchog was known as the capital of Sutton, more than anecdotally, for a very, very long time. Population center was here really until 1880-ish. So.
And they spoke French,
And they
most
did,
of them.
yes.
There wasn't a lot of English in Manchester.
And you still see the names in the village.
Right.
That's,
Brusque.
yeah,
Okay, good.
very proud village. We have a bunch of waivers we need to consider and vote. And if the board's comfortable, maybe we should try to tackle some of those, so at least you know from a design perspective that you don't have to revise any of the things that need waivers. So one of the first ones is a waiver from section 4B1 of the zoning bylaw to allow parking and circulation in the setbacks. Again, parking and circulation has always been in the setbacks. And now you have some parking in the setbacks as well. So, so you need to decide if you will waive that requirement and allow parking and circulation in the setbacks as shown on the plan. And why you find that that's appropriate. Obviously, one of the reasons is because that's where it exists now. But the parking you show in the setbacks, I believe that's gravel now, yes?
Yes, everything that's in the setback is gravel.
Right now.
Correct.
Even, flip back.
Small section
That's new,
that's outside
right
of it,
there. Yeah, so
but-
the majority of what's shown for parking is already gravel. And there's about X square feet. You can pop that back down. Each space is about 200 square feet. So you've got maybe 600 or so square feet additional.
7 spaces.
So a lot, about 1,000 plus.
So Jen,
Parking in the
so
setback.
Jen, if a planning board member can make a motion to grant a waiver for parking and circulation and setbacks, and I get a second, then we have a discussion, if someone has an issue with that.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Miriam.
Second.
Thank you, Wally.
Miriam, Wally, discussion?
And, because I'm quite familiar with the property too, I just, if there's ever a case, there's something that's special and treasured in Sutton, I don't want it to move forward. This place wasn't built for cars. People walk there. They didn't drive their horse to school, despite what everyone says. The horses were busy working at the mill, delivering product. So, for myself personally, I wanna make sure that it works, but also recognizes the history. So parking in the setback makes good planning sense to me, but other board members can weigh in.
I concur. Obviously, these regulations are made with thinking of a new building. We have an existing structure and we're doing obviously the best we can, and it's fine with me.
Anyone else?
I agree.
Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote to grant that waiver. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained?
Right.
6-0-0.
I wanted to ask a question. So your table here says that this building is 1,733 feet?
That's
What am I missing here?
That's each apartment, right?
that is, actually what is within the riverfront area, that was a typo on my part, so.
Instead of
The existing
building?
building is,
Almost 7,000, 8,000.
So it's a wrong category on the table.
right, it's the area that's within the riverfront area right here.
Okay.
That was just
Gotcha.
within, so we're not changing the building within that footprint. That's why it stayed 1,700.
Okay.
Don't have, that was one of Graves' comments, to revise that.
Revise the table,
So,
okay.
Yeah, so each apartment is proposed at X square feet.
Yeah, they're about,
1,100, yeah.
1,170 square feet and 1,060 square feet.
And the restaurant?
And the restaurant's 2960.
All right, the next one is 4B, 4I. You have an undersized loading space. So you're gonna fix it, or do you wanna get a waiver from us?
I'll look into that,
Okay, so we'll table that one.
yes.
The bylaws call for 10 feet of landscaping adjacent to abutters. So obviously, there are areas where you don't have 10 feet of landscaping adjacent to abutters, particularly near the new parking and the circulation.
Right.
Again, the circulation currently exists where it is. So you just need to decide whether you are going to make them bump those parking spaces out a little bit and put some landscaping in there, or the fact that it's next to permanently preserved Metacomet Land Trust land.
Right.
Probably stay treed.
Yeah, this is a very steep slope coming down,
Is,
and this is.
Is
as you
good
said,
enough.
We'd ask for a waiver on that one.
Yes.
Okay? What do you think? What say you?
Okay. I need a motion to grant a waiver for the landscaping.
If you are.
I'll make that motion.
Make that, thank you, Miriam.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So can you clarify, where's the land trust?
So they're right here. Metacomet Land Trust in this area.
It goes behind as well?
I'm not sure if this map shows it too.
It cuts, it's.
I think there's a line in here somewhere, but it's not shown.
Oh, no, it wraps this
Does it wrap?
way. Yep,
Okay.
and then it comes this way. The Bickfords, I think, owns part of that land near the river.
Right.
Land Trust kind of wraps backside and around the side and stops right there. Actually, no, I think they own some of that too, don't they? No?
This is Zoltan Sooks.
Bet they own more of that, but. So the Land Trust owns right where that parking would be, that's not meeting the setback.
And it comes down very steep.
About how much land do they own?
80-some acres.
At least,
How many?
at least.
At
Remember,
least 80-some acres.
remember New Village Estates? It was supposed to be 30 condominiums and 12 single-family homes?
That was all that?
No more,
That's it?
all Land Trust.
Well, then based on that and the amount of open space available in the immediate abutter here, I would support that waiver for the landscaping and the buffer zone.
So you're giving me the reasons for her motion?
Oh, is that your motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Mike already seconded it, but I love that you gave us the reasons.
That's good. Okay, any other further discussion from board
It's not
members?
just me.
Nice work.
Any input from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. 6-0-0.
All right, and you may be meeting this next one, but on the site plans, it wasn't clear. This is relative to landscaping. 4B5C2, any parking lot over 20 spaces, 5% of the interior of the parking lot needs to be interior lot landscaping. I would say the area that is shown as grass but not labeled as grass on the site plan that I got, is probably a portion of the interior lot landscaping.
Yes.
So if you're confident you have 5% interior lot landscaping, you just need to provide that calculation on a revised set of plans. Otherwise, you can ask the board for a waiver, or we can just table it and take it up next time.
Gotcha.
I think we should ask for a waiver on that.
We're really constrained on space in this area, and to expand out as far as doing additional landscaping within here would just push the parking out further.
So what's shown as green though is grass
This is grass, yes.
and around the building.
This will be, green is grass around the building. We are proposing landscaping around the building. And again, where what was originally gravel, we're gonna be revegetating, so, even though it's not within the interior of the parking area, we are increasing,
Green.
green space on the site.
All right, what do you say?
Is that, no, is that the piece we were talking about? It's got a berm on it and grass, we talking?
Yes. Right about the infiltration.
You can mention it now or mention it later, might as well
Trees.
mention it now. There's a proposal for maybe 6 hollies in there, probably needs to be supplemented, at least with some perennials, if not a ornamental tree in front of the building, though you don't
Right,
wanna
we
block
will-
the sign, but,
I thought we required trees on the
we
interior
re-
landscape.
yeah, that's an upcoming waiver.
Okay.
He's gonna have to ask for a waiver, cause you need, I think it's 1 tree per every 10 parking spaces. Now, again, he can ask for the waiver and say what he's revegetating will be trees, even though they're not on the interior. Otherwise, you're gonna technically need that waiver as well. So, but the landscaping itself that's shown needs to be supplemented. The 6 holly bushes aren't gonna cut it, but,
Beat that up.
So
But it
so
might not-
someone can make a motion that we grant the waiver. And I get a second, then we can have a discussion.
yeah, so there's 2 different ones. So the first one is, I don't know, I think he might actually have 5% interior lot landscaping, but you're saying just in case you don't,
I'm not sure off the top of my
you'd like to
head, so-
request the waiver, that you can have less than, but per what's shown on the plan right now. Then the second waiver, a different waiver would be to provide less than the number of shade trees that are otherwise required. And or to provide them along the edges instead of in the middle, if you're saying you're gonna put in a whole bunch of shade trees.
Right, we'll be again here, and we'll be adding.
Get it started.
So 2 different,
Yep,
Go with the 5%.
yeah. You make a motion to grant those, both waivers.
okay, you
can
wanna
have
do
a
them
make
in
'em.
one motion? Okay. All right, so who's gonna make that
I
motion
make that
and why?
motion.
Good.
To grant the waivers.
All right, thank you. I need a second.
Second?
Thank you, Wally.
It seems indecisive enough to me, and the possibility is that maybe there'd be some revisions to this, so I just assume let this go until another time. I didn't hear a lot of positive knowledge here about the landscaping.
So you'd rather it be tabled?
Just let it table and go on, let them revisit it.
I concur
I'm
with
not
Scott.
opposed to the waivers, but it'd be nice to see a nice
We're gonna
tree
landscape on that.
somewhere or a bush somewhere, so let them go back at it, that's just how I look at it.
It's not an old gravel pit on 146 that looks like moonscape. It's got a land trust surrounding it. It sits up on top of a hill in Manchog. There's a wonderful opportunity to make it special.
Mm.
I don't wanna hinder you.
Right. I'm not
But at the same
suggesting that.
time, anything you can do
To enhance that.
that addresses the landscaping stuff, will go a long way with me on granting.
I'll work with the Fenaris and come up with a landscape plan for this.
And
So
maybe you can't
Mike-
put something there
The bill-
because of that drainage thing, right? You can't put
Yeah,
big
I mean,
root
to put it
stuff on
right
top
over
of that.
this, any shrubs or anything in this area would be difficult, just as far as the roots getting.
Gonna grow
down.
into
I
there.
mentioned we'll
Mm.
grow into that.
Right.
And it's not,
But-
again, like Bill said, this isn't a parking lot in the mall that we need greenery in. It's a special little place.
Mm.
Needs some consideration. So give it all that consideration for me. Anyone else who wants to?
So if you wanna table it, I will need Mike and Bill to
Yeah, just
agree to
Mike on
rescind
that.
those motions and
I didn't-
table it.
I didn't make the motion.
I have
I
Mike.
agree, yeah, I would agree to rescind
You
these motions
seconded it,
temporarily.
didn't you?
Yep.
Or Wally did,
And
sorry,
Wally
I'm
did that.
sorry,
volley bait.
Yeah, can we
WB, not
rescind the
W2.
motion? Can we rescind the motion?
You can.
Yes.
Yeah, you can just
Alright.
withdraw the
All
motion
those
and
in
the
Withdraw
second.
the motion
All those in
and then-
favor of withdrawing?
Aye.
I don't need you to vote that, they just need
Okay.
to agree.
We're clear. We did it. We
So we'll
rescinded it.
table those two
Let's
waiver
table.
requests.
Without prejudice.
And this one kind of feeds in, sorry, I should have said it at the same time. You're supposed to have a maximum of 100 feet of unbroken parking rows, and you go over that. Once you go up past 10 spaces in a row, you're over 100 feet. So I assume you did that, again, because you're trying to maximize your parking
Right,
and make maintenance easier on such a tight site.
correct.
So this might be one you can vote, that they have more than 10 parking spaces in a row. I would assume for those two reasons, wicked tight site and wanna maximize your parking. So, if you're comfortable voting that, fine, if you think that also needs to be tabled, we can table it.
Make the motion that we, waive the 100-foot parking requirement due to the conditions of this site, the circumstances of this site.
Second.
Scott's a second. Any further discussion? He gave the reason in his motion,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Perfect.
Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great.
Awesome. The next two I think are pretty easy, and you can probably put them together. 4C, 4E, 4C, 4P. One requires height information for the building, one requires architectural renderings. It's an existing building, it's not gonna change. So, I don't really think they need to do architectural drawings and give you the height. When it already exists, it's not gonna change.
Are you making, like replacing windows or doing stuff on the outside or
Done and done.
enhancing the look or re-roofing it or something like that?
We're done,
Yes,
been re-roofed.
It's all done.
well done.
Stunning.
Someone wanna make those two motions?
Or one.
Move on into two.
I'll make a motion that we waive the height info restriction, or requirement, as the building will not be changing, and the other is the architectural rendering as the building exists and has historical significance.
Scott?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Michael.
Very good.
Any further discussion from the board? Comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I have nothing else? No, nothing. So, gotta deal with the water issue, get us some correspondence. This will come back from council with an opinion in, I don't know when, but hopefully relatively soon. And then just, think about just accentuating the landscaping, and then we can go back to those two waivers and your loading space.
Yes.
What about the septic, comments from the sewer
They do show the sewer line, and we do, the sewer department said that they have no problem serving them. The water is definitely the one that needs to be pinned down.
Sorry for this.
I don't think you missed that, I think it was just briefly mentioned.
So if the applicant would like, we'll continue this till August 5th, 7:10, put your first on the agenda. We'll try to start on time, try to stay timely.
Do you meet weekly or every other week?
Every other. Yeah, so if you don't think you're gonna be ready with stuff in 2 weeks, we can pop you out. I think the bigger question is, will council have time to review it, but I sent it to him today, so hopefully we should be all set in 2 weeks.
Could you just ask a couple questions before
Yep.
we do that? So Jen, in your letter, you have, two things that we didn't even talk about.
Okay.
There's a special permit from the zoning board of appeals required?
Yeah, it's a use permit, preliminary indications from, their staff is that they don't see any huge issues, and that special permit is for the 3 apartments. You can have up to 4 in a structure. So I'm not sure why they're doing the site visit unless they just wanna become familiar with the site. But the staff didn't seem to see any huge barriers to that. They will not, I believe, Mr. Lesser stated, they will not be done with their process, until August first, so it's up to you if you wanna hold your vote until after their vote, or if you just wanna make it conditional on their vote. If it was something dicey, or that, you know, I was hearing from the staff they're really not sure about, then I would absolutely recommend you wait until after the action, but that's not what I'm hearing, at least so far. Same thing
I was
with-
gonna put up the bylaws, of course I can't, so.
Right.
In the village, that's not allowed, we didn't.
Village, it's, multifamily uses are allowed by special
By the
permit
permit,
from the
okay.
zoning board of appeals.
Okay, and we're not it.
And then Concom, you said you're back in front of them on the 17th, and I believe your words were that you didn't see any major issues there.
No, they were waiting on Graves' review and that came back.
So, again, I don't, and they'll be back before them, before they're asking to come back before you, so.
The number 2 in your letter is about the fact that there's land shown that's not owned for access.
Yeah, and so that's the issue Attorney Lesser
That
alluded
is-
to.
okay.
So
Alright.
that's gotta go to council.
That's good.
All right, so we'll continue.
We need a motion,
Motion to
8-5 at
continue to-
7:10.
Motion to continue to August 5th at 7:10 PM.
Second.
No.
So moved.
You made the motion. And you someone to
did
make the
too.
motion.
Second.
Wally did, okay. All right.
Chairman's not supposed to make.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
John, yeah.
There was some issue with the field in terms of getting someone from my office here, and we wanted to go to the 19th, is that a problem?
Yeah, they'll have to kind of, I won't say reopen, but they'll have to vote it that night. Like, so anybody who is noticed is gonna show up on that night, and they'll have to do another continuance. So if you think it's dicey, we probably should just go to the 19th.
Let me check for a second with my file, but the.
Very quickly.
Okay.
We'll just go with the 5th, we'd like to move forward if it's a problem, and.
Yeah, well, it sounds
We'll
like,
let you know, and.
You just send us a note, we can just.
Well, it-
You can do that tomorrow.
but it sounds like there might be some site issues we can knock out of the way anyways, even if we can't knock the legal issue out of the way. So I don't think it'll be a fruitless meeting. You'll just have to pay for your engineer to go. So, but we can get
Okay.
something done.
Thank you
Okay,
very
so it's continued.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so
Alright.
that was a voted,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great.
hold on just a second.
Okay. 7:30, we have a public hearing for 188 Mendon Road, retreat lots.
Bad memory, sorry.
Thank you.
Alrighty,
Hello.
hop on in.
I'm Michael Pizzarella. I'm here. Actually,
Quick.
my engineer, Raoul.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Did they read the hearing notice?
No.
Take a load off for a minute. Let them read the hearing notice.
Yeah, I don't
Got
have
it?
Yeah.
I got it. Go ahead, Mike.
No way.
In accordance with the provisions of section 6H, retreat lots of the Sutton zoning bylaw, and section 15 of the general bylaw, scenic roadways, as well as public shade tree lot, 87, the planning board will hold a public hearing on the application of Angelo Pizzarella, 12 Mildred Ave, Millbury, Mass, for land owned by the applicant at 188 Mendon Road. The applicant seeks a special permit for 2 retreat lots. Lot 2 has 7.47 acres and 230 feet of frontage, and Lot 4 has 6.61 acres and 62 feet of frontage. The applicant also seeks permission to create breaks in existing stone walls and remove public shade trees where necessary for driveways to access lots 1 to 4 at this location.
All right.
Good job.
So, I'm Michael Pizzarella. My family owns the property here. And Raouf from Alpha Omega was doing all the engineering and the site work. I think he's out of town this week. So he kinda just asked me to stop in during the meeting in case I can maybe answer any questions you guys may have. But, you know, we're looking for the board's consideration on the retreat lots. and the curb cuts for the driveways, and the stone walls. There's not much there for the stone wall, but whatever is there, you know, obviously we would preserve in other areas of the wall.
Let me help you out, Mike. I'll be Vanna White.
All right, thank you.
Do the plan.
Sorry about that, I thought you guys would have the plans on those.
You do have the plan. I
Okay.
just don't mount them in the plan.
That's actually the back side, so that's probably the most
And the
important
closet
one.
one, yeah.
Yeah, the coffee stand.
That's. Alrighty. Okay. Awesome.
Great.
Okay, I'm Vanna. Alright, so, big piece of property, proposing to cut it into 1, 2, 3, 4 lots, 2 standard lots, and 1, 2 retreat lots. Atypical retreat lot, doesn't have the tiny frontage, but it doesn't have 250. Okay, everybody see that? Okay, and then you can just show roughly where the driveways would be.
Alright, so here on lot one, it's, let's see, there's all, you know, all survey markers along the road already.
Mhm.
So I got it marked out, you know, within a foot or two. We're asking for a 16-foot opening here, and, you know, there's, all the trees that we're asking to cut down, there's like, a couple, you know, rotted one's basically falling down, it's been, looked like it was hit by lightning or something, cut right in half. I'm not sure if Matt went out there and looked at them already, I think he has. So that's the driveway there. Next one here on the first retreat lot, you know, it's about 70 feet off lot number one, also 16 feet. And same thing on here on the conventional lot, it's about right there in the middle, 16 feet as well. And then on this last retreat lot, there's a stone wall that comes down here, that's the property line. And then, you know, I think we're about 30 feet from that stone wall. For also a 16-foot curb cut, or, I don't know if you call them curb cuts or driveway openings. So that's basically what we're looking at. You want me to do the whole one? All right, thanks.
Need some designer clothes apparently.
Gotta get the answer.
So that's where we're at. Like I said, Raouf, I think you guys are familiar with him. He's the one who kind of designed it all. And Bob Murphy has already done all the wetland delineation. I don't think conservation hasn't, what they call, like, verified them yet. But you know, he's pretty confident with what he's done.
Good job. You had the right assistant.
Thank
You made
you.
a wonderful presentation. Any comments or concerns from any board members? I'll ask for those first, then I'll ask for any comments or concerns from the public.
Okay, great.
And then we'll
You might wanna
move
just
on the agenda.
turn also,
Okay.
everybody else can
Yeah,
see,
we
cause
can-
we have our own little.
We have a copy.
We have a copy. I have a question.
Go ahead.
So how many acres is, the whole parcel as existing to get, you know, in totality?
Yeah, that's a good question you're gonna throw at me, so, I'm gonna say we got 6, we got 13, 14, 15, yeah, so it's about 17 acres total for the 4 parcels. So the 2 retreat lots are obviously bigger, those are the 2 biggest ones, and then the 2 conventional lots, they're, just like 2 acres each.
Right, well, they gotta be at least
80,000.
80,000. Are they each 80?
80,000, right, so 1.81, so they both exceed that.
Yeah, the first one, 91,000 square feet, and the second one, just over 80,000 square feet.
So conceivably, Jen, with your vast knowledge, what could you how many houses could possibly go into this? It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of wetlands. Could go
No.
into this, these 17 acres in a different configuration.
Well, with not a lot of wetlands, what you usually take is the total acreage, you subtract out 25% for roadways,
Okay, so now we're down to 14, 13.
and then you just divide it by the required lot area, so you could get 6 or 7 potentially. It's a relatively normal shaped lot, you know, it's not funny shaped, so it's pretty square, so you could potentially get more than is shown here if you did a subdivision roadway.
Potentially 7.
Yeah, it wouldn't make a ton of sense, because say you got 6 or 7, by the time you get done with the detailed engineering, and you get done building a roadway that would access 6 or 7 lots, which would probably be a loop road with a cul-de-sac off of it, then you just lost the profit on at least 1, if not 2 of those lots, so this makes way more sense.
Yeah, based on frontage, just on frontage alone, this is probably
Yeah.
maximum.
Cause you gotta have 250 feet for every one you cut in, so.
What would the road look like? Cul-de-sac?
I think the road would probably be a loop road with the cul-de-sac off of it to get 7. Cause you gotta have 250 feet for each one, so you'd probably do a horseshoe and then you do a cul-de-sac to the back. That's what I'm thinking,
Horseshoe with a cul-de-sac.
a horseshoe with the cul-de-sac.
There's actually a second part of this plan which comes up this side.
Yeah.
There's more backland.
Right,
Okay.
so you'd horseshoe and then you do whoop, pop back up into the back.
Oh, so this keeps going, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Goes all the way to the golf course.
Right,
All right, here it is, I'm sorry, I didn't look at page 2.
right. So yeah, so you might get more lots, but you probably wouldn't get a lot more, if any more, return on the property than just doing these 4 houses.
For me, with my planning
Wouldn't get a
board
lot?
hat on,
No,
A lot.
the,
I mean,
the scenic, because it's on a scenic roadway, the trees and the stone walls are very, very important. And I appreciate you coming in to talk to us, cause some people, not on purpose, don't know about that. And go in and just start working, or hire people who say, oh, I've done this before, and we've recently had, situations where a whole bunch of stuff got ruined, so. When
Right down
when
the
it comes to
street.
the stone walls,
Oh, yeah.
if you need, the stone walls that are still there,
Mhm.
need to stay there.
Right.
We need to know exactly how many feet your openings are going to be,
Mhm.
cause you need to have access based on where you are on the road and how you gotta get into the lot. And the stones that are removed,
Mhm.
should stay on the property somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's basically what I think the planning board historically wants, as opposed to selling off all the stones. And we lose the character.
Right.
So,
No, actually,
I
one of
just-
the, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
One of the questions I was actually gonna ask, if we were good with this was, like this, the wall itself, I don't know how the board feels, like, as we're working and we find more stones on the property, do you like to kinda just keep the look of the existing wall, even if it's kinda just rubbly?
Yep.
Or would you like to kinda like fill it in a little bit?
You'd be surprised what some people do and say they're helping us.
Right, so-
When they build you've probably been on town and said, where'd that stone wall come from? It
Right.
doesn't fit. These are old.
Okay, just
They're-
kinda leave them the way they are.
They're traditional New England stone walls, no cement
Right.
involved.
If you're taking, you have 16-foot breaks. If you take a bunch of stones out of the 16-foot break and you kinda stack them in,
Right.
in missing spots on the existing wall, just like the farmer did it, or
Sure.
whoever did it many years ago, no big deal.
Mhm.
Don't start putting mortar, don't start
Right.
squaring them off, don't start chipping stones. Yeah,
That
none
makes
of that.
sense. Oh, because it's the old field,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why.
Yeah, just look up and down the road, there's a
Right.
reason it's designated scenic. So that's usually what people do, they'll take the stones they're taking out, supplement the rest of the wall, and or do a curve in for the
Sure.
driveways.
Right.
That looks kinda like the rest of the rubble stone wall.
Right. And a couple of those actual openings, I guess they call it maybe an old cart path or something
Cartways.
from years ago.
Yep.
And there's maybe not even any stones in it, there are, I think maybe on lot 1 and 4 is where there'd be a few stones, and even in that case, it's not many at all, a few at most. I would say less than 10 probably total for all 4 lots.
Street from here.
And the property is
This has been pretty
has been the state it's in for as long as I can remember, so, there's been no working on the property, farming and having stones that they needed to move, so you just have left with what was there. That's why it is what it is, and it's fine.
He did get some feedback from the tree warden, he did look at the staked areas and the trees that are on this side of the wall, which are public trees, and his comment was, these trees need removal anyway. So, sounds like he concurs with your dead or blah blah. So, if they're,
You know, I
quality public shade trees, you'd be paying money into the town's replacement fund or replacing them, but his
When we went
input.
over there to, to measure the, where we would decide to put the driveway, we kinda took all that into consideration. We looked for the bad trees, which there was a couple, and we said, let's do it here, because, instead of taking down a nice, 25-inch tree, why not look for the damaged ones? So that's what we did.
Great.
So if someone wants to make a motion, to grant the waiver from the scenic road and public shade tree alteration, there's
Oh,
one
wait a minute.
condition.
It's not a waiver. So you have,
No,
you
We have
have
a,
two motions. You're gonna grant the special permit for the retreat lots with the conditions. No, they're still doing it right. In the July 8th memo as a minimum. And then that second motion will be, instead of a waiver, use the word alterations. Grant the alterations requested to the scenic road and, public changes. So just alteration instead of waiver.
Does that,
Go ahead.
do you ask for any comments, or anybody, everybody?
Yeah, wait, yeah, we
Retreat
Yeah,
laws?
your people here.
Ask the
I
public.
didn't
Yeah.
make sure they understand
Yep.
what retreat law is.
Okay.
Go for it.
Any other comments from
Okay.
board members? No? Comments from the public?
Ask a question?
Yeah. Sure.
Alice Russell, 176 Mendon Road. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Jim.
Now, most of those trees I did where you marked it off, we walked up there today just to take a walk and that's it. So what are you putting, driveways way in, going back all these lots, you're gonna driveways on way in?
Yeah, so basically the house would be way up here. On these two retreat lots, you're not even gonna know there's a house there. So, you come up here, there'd be a house way back up here, and on this driveway here, it's gonna come up way over here, and it'd be somewhere over here. And then these ones be, so basically you drive down Mendon Road, you're probably gonna see two new houses.
Is it you were working up in this area, is that where the house is going, or is that just where the?
Yeah, so we did the test here for the septic. So this driveway would come up around here, and it'd come up in this section here. And I spoke with the gentleman who lives in this house, and he was worried about the same thing that happened to, so I told him already, I said, we'll keep all these trees along the stone wall here, and we're not gonna clear cut it, like the other guy did. So, he was concerned about the privacy. So I said, obviously, we'll keep as many as we can. I'm gonna do the same thing along here as well. with
What's
that
happening
item.
with the backland that they aren't using back, and then the backside, ain't gonna happen?
Yeah, the backland, that goes down to the golf course, kinda slopes down, a lot of wetlands back there, that's just gonna, nobody's ever gonna touch that, it's wet, you really can't do much back there. So, yeah, it's just gonna be, here is basically the location, here, this one here, I'm hoping to build my house, and then,
So two details for retreat lots. Retreat lots have to have underground utilities. So the standard lots, you can go above ground with the electricity to the houses. The retreat lots, they have to have underground utilities. So you won't see poles back to those ones. And once this is granted, the retreat lot, there's a 20-day appeal period, and as soon as that's done, they're gonna come to have the board sign these lots into existence. Once they are recorded, and they pull a building permit on them, then they can't divide the land again. So, we do let people know up front, if you think some of the backland or side land that's more than the required retreat lot area, which you only need 5.51 acres for a retreat lot, you might wanna transfer it to a neighbor or do something. Show that as an unbuildable lot, so we don't have hassles with it. They were notified of that and said, no, just leave it part of the big lots, we're not gonna do anything with it. So, as soon as the board approves that, it gets signed and recorded, and anybody pulls a building permit, it's done. Okay? And retreat lots, I think, Bill, you were pointing out, the retreat lot, it can have less than the 250 feet of frontage, as little as 50, but they have to give triple the acreage. So they have to be at least 5.51 acres. So that's what a retreat lot is.
And never to be subdivided, but it's
And-
better than the alternative of 7 houses with a horseshoe and a polyp off the horseshoe.
And as we've been working up there, a few people driving down the street, heard you putting 35 houses, or, the next guy will drive down, I heard you putting 12, so.
Should take deposits.
Yeah.
You're gonna fix the road, Mendon Road?
That'd be nice.
Get the answers.
Mendon Road
That's
is
what
one
I
of the
want.
worst roads.
Anyone
today.
else?
And that section right there in front of us.
Right there,
is kinda
terrible.
doing the work, so.
Any other comments? Any other questions from
The only
planning board?
question I had, and I noticed, looking at the project review forms already done,
Yep.
there was something from Concom about, there are potential wetland areas on site.
Yeah.
Is maybe produce a plan that shows the wetlands, has that been
Yeah,
addressed?
so you can kinda see them, the rough wetland locations, and I believe those ones were flagged and survey located
Yeah,
by Bob Murphy, is that who did those?
that's right, Bob Murphy.
So when they go to actually go to construct the driveways and the houses, if the driveway and or the houses are within 100 feet of those, they're gonna file a notice of intent with the Concom, and the Concom's gonna wanna see the actual wetland flag numbers and all of that detail to make sure there's no adverse impact. In terms of a Form A plan, like we're going to approve, we can't really, I mean, they've done what we've asked kind of above and beyond, said who designated them and that they've been field located, but we really don't have the authority to go beyond that. But Concom will, if anything's gonna be constructed within 100 feet.
Okay.
Alright. I'll make a motion, we approve these two retreat lots with the following conditions. Approval of all of the applicable boards, departments, and commissions. 2, the driver shall have a maximum grade of 12% and a minimum paved width of 12 feet width and 15-foot cleared width. Number 3, the house lot shall be clearly visible at the street. And number 4, no occupancy permit shall be granted until all conditions and requirements of this bylaw are 100% complete.
Thank you, Scott.
Second.
All right, any other comments? Do we wanna add in the stuff about the stone walls?
We'll do let's do a separate motion for the scenic and the.
Any further comments from the board?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
All right, now let's do that motion to approve the scenic road and public shade tree alterations for the application. And Bob, whatever condition you think's appropriate.
Go ahead, someone wanna make that motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the alteration of the stone wall along the southern side of Mendon Road for the 4 driveways that are being placed, that all the stones stay on the lot, and that no significant modification to the stone wall be made without a proper hearing, here, 'cause it's a scenic road.
Good.
Second.
Thank you, Marion. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Nice.
All
Okay,
set.
motion to close?
I make a motion, we close this public hearing.
Thank you, Bill.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All set. Good
Thank you.
job.
Okey-dokey. So we'll put that on file within 14 days. It's usually on file by Wednesday.
Okay.
And then there's 21 days tick off, the day we file it, and 20 days after that. As soon as that appeal period runs, if nobody appeals it, then we'll schedule you into the next meeting just to get those lots signed into being. At that time, you'll need a draft covenant required by law that says you'll never divide those retreat lots again. And I will send an email to Rolf, because these lots will never be further divided. Note on that plan needs to be adjusted to talk about the covenant. That's gonna be recorded with that plan.
That's great.
Okay?
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good job.
Thank you.
Where does this go, Jen?
Oh, just leave it right there, in case we need it again.
Where does this go, Bannon?
Thank you.
Next, we have at 7:45 planning board time, we have a public hearing of 14 Lakeview Circle. Someone read that notice? Apologize.
No.
We try. We're within an hour.
It's amazing.
This isn't, this is a new? All right. In accordance with the provisions of section 6L of the Sutton zoning bylaw, accessory apartment bylaw, planning board will hold a public hearing on the application of Jeff Roy, 14 Lakeview Circle, Sutton, Mass, to construct an 813 square foot accessory apartment attached to the rear of the garage at 14 Lakeview Circle. Hearing be held at Sutton Town Hall, 3rd floor, Monday, July 15th at 7:45.
again for allowing us to come before you at the 17th June hearing, very informal, that's very helpful. And so we are here today for the formal hearing, looking for a special permit to construct an accessory apartment. My name is Gary Moyer, I'm architect, this is Jeff Roy, the homeowner. So the accessory apartment is an in-law for Jeff's mother-in-law. And we're in the R1 zoning district, roughly 1.9 acre lot, and we are located at the end of Lakeview in a cul-de-sac on the pond. The existing house is roughly 2,500 square feet, it's a story and a half. So one of our challenges here was to respect the scale of that house and not overpower it with the structures that were proposed. And so we proposed to add a garage bay on this end for a tractor and pickup truck, and then the in-law behind with storage below. You can see the existing site plan here, that's the existing garage, and then the proposed has the existing garage here, the new garage bay, the new in-law behind. So to, again, respect the character of the existing house, we did a salt box for that garage bay on the end, making the fascias align. And the in-law behind is a lower roof structure. If we were to enclose this entire footprint of the two garages and the in-law with one roof, we would be overpowering the existing house, which you can see in story and a half is kind of a low profile. We have some perspective renderings here of the proposed addition. So the in-law is 813 square feet, 768 square feet is the minimum for zoning. And last time we went through all the requirements in the zoning bylaw for the accessory apartments, and I think we pretty much meet all of those. The salient point here, I guess, is we're not to be more than 50% of a detached accessory structure. So the existing garage is 576 square feet here. The garage bay addition, 633 square feet for a total of 1,209. The in-law is 813 square feet, makes a total of 2,022. 50% of that is 1,011. And our apartment is 813 square feet, and it's less than 50% of that accessory structure. One of the points that was an excellent point made last time by the board was how, in case of emergency, will the responder find Millie? And so the doorway is either here, her main entrance is through the garage, she would drive into the garage, then go into a door into the in-law. And the alternate route is to come up to the existing porch, down the stairs to the deck, and into that door, or through the slider on the side. So Jeff, the owner, proposed to put some signage out front here to differentiate the two entrances. So this is the entrance to the main dwelling, and there will be a sign here indicating that the entrance to the accessory apartment will be to the rear. Any questions?
Is this picture, is it the architecture and the potential footprints, has it changed from when we informally spoke a month ago?
So the package I've given you is dated the 17th of June. And no, I don't believe there was any change to the roof lines, the overall footprint, those dimensions are all the same.
Your comment here, Janet, it met the 50% requirement.
Mhm.
Go back.
Yep, it's less than 50% of the,
So I'm saying it must be a portion of the main dwelling, or no more than 50% of the detached accessory, such as a garage. And it has to be, there's a square foot, not exceed 1,200 square feet.
comments from board members? Comments from the public?
Huge room full of people.
There's I'm reading the project review form. It's July, and it's from Joyce Smith, which is Conservation. They need to file because there are poorly drained soils within 40 feet of the existing house. The new addition is in close proximity. We need more information from a wetland scientist to determine locations. I'm just reading that.
Yeah.
You saw that?
I did, yeah.
Okay. And then there's an okay from the police department, Board of Health. You may consider a deed restriction, 4-bedroom septic, 4-bedroom house, must remain 4-bedroom house unless increase septic or remove privacy from the existing bedroom.
So you've got a
Really?
system that can handle 4 bedrooms, and that's what you've got.
It's an existing
Now.
4-bedroom house, so 2 of the bedrooms will be combined to make
In
one.
the existing house.
And we're adding the in-law, which
Much
makes
to the
one
delight of
bedroom.
my 15-year-old daughter.
Yeah, got a suite now?
That's right.
And there are no comments from, who's that? Sutton Fire, it just says Sutton, okay, good. Any comments I have? I think we're ready to move. I'll need a
Being an hour late.
Yeah, well. So I'll need a motion to grant the accessory apartment
Special
permit.
permit, yep. And you've
With
got,
conditions, that are in a memo from Jen, someone wants to,
I'll leave it.
go ahead.
The
So
minimum.
you're making the motion?
I'm making a motion with the minimum conditions. Approval of all other required departments, boards, and commissions, expressly approved from the Board of Health. Separate street numbers must be utilized and clearly posted on the home and if necessary at the street for the main home and accessory apartment so that emergency vehicles know where, how to gain access to the separate units. And, I would certainly concur with that. I did drive by the property the last few days. You see his car go by, you're like, ooh, that's not cool.
Yeah.
But, you know, in house is set back and looking where the access would be, you need to be, you know,
Oh, yeah.
for your own benefit and obviously your mother,
Yep.
mother-in-law, you know. Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
I
thank-
second.
Thank you, Bill. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 6-0-0.
I have a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Thank you.
Second.
Get a second?
Where's the
Scott.
first?
Wally.
Pay attention, we're going fast. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
The
I'll
eyes
print
are
it
getting
every
Thank
bigger.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going fast.
Alright, that'll be put on file usually by Wednesday,
21
and
days,
21 days, blah, blah, blah. We got it.
I heard the last guy.
Thank you.
Garage.
Thanks for being
He's
patient.
gonna be out in
Alright.
Have a good evening.
You too, sir.
I'm
There's
not sure how this next one works, so we're just gonna do a little teeny tiny bit of overkill. We had a notice public hearing, so somebody should probably read the notice, and then we're gonna note the request to withdraw. Okay, so if somebody can read the notice for 211 Worcester Providence?
Go ahead, thank you.
In accordance with the provisions of the Sutton zoning bylaw, section 4.c, site plan review, and 5.d, Route 146 overlay district bylaw, the planning board will hold a hearing on the applications of Lano Lukasevich of Grafton, Mass. Lukasevich, on property owned by J&L Holdings, Inc. at 211 Worcester Providence Turnpike. The applicant intends to expand and restructure the parking lot for Route 146 Fitness.
Hearing will be held. Finish up there, mister. Finish it up.
Okay, and also,
The hearing will
the
be
hearing
held.
will be held at Sutton Town Hall, 3rd floor, on Monday, July 15th, 2019 at 8 p.m.
All right, so, thank you. So the hearing is open, and we have a request to withdraw the application. Bob, in the blue file folder, there is a letter that you would also have to sign once the board votes this. So, no reason given, just they've reconsidered and decided not to move forward at this time. We would need a motion to accept the request to withdraw without prejudice. And then we'll close the hearing and Bob can sign that request. I pray is in there somewhere, or we'll have to find a new one.
Got it.
Excellent.
I'll make a motion that we withdraw without prejudice the application for 211 Worcester Providence Turnpike site plan review.
Thank you, Scott.
Second.
Thank you, Wally. Any further comment?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Need a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Wally.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
Done with
And
that.
signed. It's in the file. All right.
Alright, I have a continuation of Wedgewood. So, Mr. Brandy is here.
Finally,
Thanks for being
finally, huh?
patient.
We do
Been
have-
patient.
Is it 8 o'clock?
You were here, we were trying.
Time flies.
You know, it's,
Time flies, isn't it?
We do have a bunch of waivers we can still work on. Randy did submit a memo dated July 11th, 2019, kind of detailing more formally his proposed slate of resident services. So, Randy, if you just wanna kinda go over those real quick and make sure the board is in agreement with those and believes those are compliant with the regs.
Okay.
And then, we have a few comments from Graves we might want some clarification on, and then we can continue to just try to clean up the rest of the waivers. And then we're really just waiting to see what Concom says, because the wetlands are so integral to the project. We wanna see it, have at least a fairly good feeling they're going towards approval before we act on it, if not, have their approval in here.
Act on the next special permit in the site plan review.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have groundwater, right? So we'll at least start their hearing and see where they're going before we do that. And then we have 146 still, and
Yep.
then site plan approval.
Yep.
So you can decide kind of at what point, in terms of what we know from the conservation process, you're
Yep.
comfortable voting on those, or if there's any of those that you won't vote on until Concom's done. Okay? So if you can just kind of go over the
Yep.
the slate of services?
So, we were here last on June 17th, and at that time, Jen had submitted a June 14th letter with some comments on sort of where we're at on the review of plans. And so one of the items is in relation to the continued care retirement community regulations. And in your regulations, it says the board needs to decide if the resident services that we are providing are, for this CCRC, are compliant with this section of the regulations. So we talked through, the list that's in the bylaw, and that includes things such as financial assistance, recreation kind of opportunities, other, opportunities that were approved by the planning board. I think we all sort of agreed that if we had at least 5 items on the list that followed your bylaw, that would be sufficient. But I believe we have about 9 of them here on the list, and we submitted that in writing the other day. It's dated July 11th. Wedgewood Farm list of in-house resident services per 5IJ Section 2 definitions. And so those are the items. Number 1 is financial assistance, and again, that's right out of the bylaw. That's one of the items that they like to see, or that the town bylaw requires. So that will be provided in the forms of mortgage assistance and master insurance for the project. Exercise and recreation was another one that's listed right there in the bylaw. And we are providing walking trails, bike trails, bocce court. We hope to have ice skating, which will be discussed with the commission as well. Other services that are incidental to the CCRC that are approved by the planning board. And we talked about the trail connection to the bookstore. That was something that when we met with them, they said it'd be really nice if you're gonna have trails, you could connect to us, because it'd be great for our business and great for the project too, because they have a lot of adult services that they do there as well. So that's been included in the project, and as well as I've talked to the owners at the Pleasant Valley Country Club, and they said they'd love to have some new members there, so we're gonna try and meet with them and see if we can figure out a way to make that easier for everybody.
We're also providing some transportation services, and that is listed in the bylaw again. And that would be in the form of the two central we call them bus stops or drop-offs, but we have an area where there's a pull-off right on Ormsby Road on the north and south side. So you could drop or pick people up there, and it's gonna have bikes, on the, drop-offs, on the kiosks. So there's two stations right out on the street. We talked about potentially a waiver to the senior services fees, but it sounds like they really believe that this project would rely on them and use their services, so we agreed to delete that request for a waiver, and we will be paying the fees and be, connected to the senior center, so that's another, service that will be provided. Number 6 is community gardens. We're gonna have some gardens in the project. A lot of them are more pocket parks, but we are providing a dog park on site. And out of the 57 acres of land, there'll be about a total of 50 acres out of the 57 that will be permanently protected as open space. And so we've provided a plan showing where that is, and that's everything essentially but the roads and the buildings themselves. Everything else would be permanently protected open space. In addition, we have, as your CCRC Route 146 section, I think, calls out that you need to have a central gathering place. So we have something that we call Newell Park. It's situated between the two ponds, would have accessible trails in it, and so that's well over 5 acres, so that's noted on the plans as well. Administrative services, we talked to Jen about, it'd be good to create sort of a listing of health services locally, doctors, that type of thing, so we're happy to try and do that type of thing and collect names and get resources, hopefully. And then professional management services, we're gonna have private roads, private trash pickup, private landscape maintenance, so all of those things would be included in the services that are provided on site. And then the final one was the barrier-free architectural design. These buildings will be designed with the aging in mind, and they will include level grading at the front of each unit. So there'll only be a 6-inch drop from the front door to the garage door, so if in the future you needed to make a small ramp in there, you've got more than enough room to make that, and it would actually not have to be one of the sort of ugly multiple level things that you see a lot of times at the front of the house just because of the height. There'd be, wider entry doors would be available and an interior layout that would accommodate accessibility in the future. So those were sort of the 9 items, and we felt that those would meet the requirements as listed in the bylaw.
Can I put you on the hot seat for just a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Can I put you on the hot seat
Yeah.
for just a minute? So in a previous request, you had said on this barrier-free one,
Yep.
that there were 2 things that would be harder to change later on, so that you were gonna do those 2 things. And I think one of them was the wider interior doors, that you were going to just do those in the units, and there was another one. I could flip back through, so, so other than cost, and less cost is the only thing, kind of why you decided to make that more of an option.
Well, I really went back to the architect and said, what's required by code and what do you suggest? And they said, well, it would be crazy to make every door wider in the whole project. So it's not the framing of the doors, it's the doors themselves. So the amount of framing is the same, but they said making wider doors everywhere. So that's why they came up with the language that they said, buildings are designed with the aging in mind and include level grading and so forth, and an interior layout that will accommodate accessibility. So if they have an area where there's a door that's a 36-inch door, and instead of making the door wider, they would make sure that the cabinets that are near it are further back, so somebody could always make it wider in the future. So the layout is really designed so you can do that in the future, but you don't do it all the time up front. But if somebody needs to, that building is essentially
So if you have like hallways, you'd make sure those are
wider in the
wider.
first place, yeah. So the door might be smaller, but as long as the hallway's wider and the cabinets accommodate that,
Right.
then the doorway could be widened, and that's really it there. So if somebody says that that's why it was also written this way, interior layout that will accommodate accessibility in the future if needed. So if somebody comes in day 1 and says, well, I'm at it now, we're building the house, we want it wider, you do it day 1, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody young and healthy, then they would move in and they could always do it in the future. It wouldn't be, the building design won't prohibit it.
So what kind of a width is required for a wheelchair? Is that the kind of thing we're talking about, a wheelchair, people in wheelchairs?
Well, yes, the reason I bring this up is because obviously my dad had a stroke and was in a wheelchair for 14 years before he passed away, and every doorway in my mother's house has huge grooves in them. Granted, her house was built in 1860, but still, so
I would
yeah,
agree.
even just having a slightly wider door is just so huge. But a lot of floor plans now are more open.
They are definitely more open.
I'm more
36,
worried
yeah.
about the entry doorways, like literally the door from the garage to the house and the
Yeah.
front door.
Yeah.
At least the garage from the door to the house being that bigger size.
And those, I think now are all 36 inch, and they didn't used to be, so they're wider than they used to be. And I think it's even more important that like, areas where you need to have a 5-foot diameter turnaround for a wheelchair is even more important. You know, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
usually get somebody through the door, take the casing off, do whatever you have to do, but it's that turnaround that's even more critical. So if everything's built too small, you're not able to do that in the future.
So that's one of the first things we need to do is agree if you're comfortable with this, and then we can just put that issue to bed, if you're comfortable with this.
Who was Newell Park named after?
We talked to Jen and we got a list of historical
I'm
names.
not as good, I am
From
not as.
Joyce Smith, I believe, generated a lot of those, but, the Newell family and Wedgwood Farm and all of the names that we used on all of our streets were all taken from the list that
The
we were
history.
given as
Yeah.
historic names.
It's, Wedge, Newell, yeah, I mean,
I don't-
I'm very good at Mantrap history, this is newer history to me, but yeah, it's basically a family of principals,
Yep.
school principals.
Yep.
The two daughters way, this Newell had
Yeah.
two daughters, they're both, he was a principal, they were both principals. Very education oriented family, and they kinda occupied that area, so the Newell Wedge, those are both family names. Joshua's Way is Joshua, that's the
Lily Pond Way.
matriarch. All of the names came right out of the town history. Joyce gave me some initial research and tagged some pages in the history, and then
So you wouldn't qualify unless this is like the 5th generation to get your name on that list, right? You haven't lived in Sutton.
I think Joshua was the
I'll never make it.
original.
Yeah.
Good job. I had that same question.
There you go.
Are there any Newells left in town?
I don't think so. I mean, descendants probably,
Yeah.
but obviously the names.
Not with that name.
The daughters, you
Yeah.
know, don't have Newell names anymore. Or their descendants.
Used to have a guy.
That was a good answer, you know.
Harry Newell used to
Did
work
your
at the-
research.
That was good. You know, some towns aren't that, you know, it's not that important to them, but I knew it would be here, and we talked early about it.
Yeah.
Said, we'll get a list. So,
History's awesome.
yeah.
Local
And
history is really.
It's even better that the names are sort of appropriate for what we're doing.
Yeah, it fits.
We get sometime that are bizarre historic or military names that just, you're like, I'm not gonna call this a street or project by these names. So you're like, you got any others? These were all good names, they actually were, you know.
Off the top. I came through Troy, New York today,
Uh-huh.
and they had pictures of veterans who, and it was thank you for your service. Like those pictures that you got when you graduated from basic training.
Oh,
But they
neat.
weren't people that were dead yet. I was looking at the dates saying, these people probably still live in town. And some were like Vietnam. Oh,
Nice.
that's an interesting,
Long overdue for Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
an interesting way to honor veterans as
Yeah.
opposed to, the typical,
Posthumously,
after, yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
But they're actually, I'm looking, as I'm driving, I'm saying, that person's still alive, finally, you know, embarrassed to have his picture up there. But it was an interesting, I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
We were in Leominster a week ago and they had it.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Should be doing that at a minimum for all alive Vietnam veterans.
A lot of them looked like they were probably, Middle Eastern War,
Yeah.
recent,
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
you know.
No, you can't do enough for people in service. My father was a pilot in the Air Force for 30 years, so.
Oh my gosh.
They loved it, loved every minute of it, but fought in a lot of wars, so.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Alrighty, so, and Graves had a comment letter, and so we need to deal with a few things from that. Obviously, there's
So
some
we're good with
minor,
that- We're good with that list.
you're good with that list?
That's-
Are you good with the majority?
Does anyone have a problem with
And
that
that was
list?
in relation to your letter, the item down on the
Talking
bottom
about
about
the
the
width?
bottom.
Residential services.
And so I didn't
Yeah,
know if
yeah,
that's
yeah, no,
something
that's
that we.
That's all fine.
I do have a
Decision
question.
That yes, they find
I don't
this
remember it.
adequate or anything. I think you
No, I
suggested
don't think-
one above it just to have them even
The list?
acknowledge, but we can
I
do
have-
that
I just have a
next as long as they
Oh, yeah.
All right.
recognize.
I just think the straw poll that the majority agrees
Well, so my question relative to that is, and I don't remember the plans to that degree, is there a place where, you know, let's say 5 people wanna get together, or 6 couples and play cards at night, is there a room like that in the
There's not a
facilities?
community type
There's no
room, no.
community center place?
No, no, just the size of it is not big enough to warrant that.
Okay.
But we do have, like I say, we have the bocce court that's in that central, Newell Park area with accessible trails, that type of thing, so there's certainly benches in there, there's places that people go sit and be outside together, so, but other than that, it would be in the units.
Okay.
And many of the units, like I say, most of them back up to a small pocket park, so if something where if you wanted to
Right.
sit out on your deck at night and do that, you certainly could do that.
Okay. I think that, so my straw vote is that the list looks good to me.
Agreed.
1, 2,
Oh, did I
3,
jump in front of you?
4.
No
No,
additions.
no, I'm happy over here, quite frankly.
Miriam, you good?
Yep.
All right, so that issue is done, we'll put that issue to bed. All right.
Like the driveways.
So in his last, comment letter, Jeff was concerned about the length of the driveway. So you've got 2 well, I shouldn't say that. Our bylaws require 2 parking spaces for every residential unit. Now, some of these units will be 1-car garages, most will be 2-car garages.
Yep.
So you're meeting the requirement in most units, you're meeting the bylaw requirement within the garage. But you would have people over to play cards from outside the neighborhood, and Jeff had a concern with, a lot of those look not deep enough to have a substantial sized car or put 2 cars end to end. He was just worried about the length of the driveways to the road, and the roads don't have any sidewalks, so you don't really kinda have a buffer. So that was one of his comments, so if you could kinda speak to that, and then the board can discuss.
Okay. Well, what he did is he sent his letter dated June 25th, but in the email that he sent it to you and I and Patrick Burke he said there are really 2 big concerns, and one of them is parking. I wanna make sure it's adequate, the length of driveways are adequate. And the second item was there was one drainage area on the site where he didn't feel like there was enough, I think, offsetting drainage or detention. So they're looking at that right now. Patrick Burke is looking at that, and we'll have that done, I think, this week.
Both those issues.
Well, I'll go through the parking one specifically, but
okay.
they're doing that drainage
The
one. and
compliance with pre- and
yeah.
post-development to the pond?
And they've started a response letter, and they'll have it to you this week.
Okay,
So
cool.
they just couldn't finish it quite
All right.
tonight. But the parking was a big one that he mentioned, and it's strange because in his comment, you can tell that when we said there would be 2 parking spaces in a unit, a 2-car garage unit, I don't think he understood that we were suggesting there would be 2 cars side by side. I think because he kept saying, you can't put 2 cars back to back in that, and I'm like, yeah, of course you couldn't, it's only 20 or 22 feet deep.
Mhm.
So, I don't think we're on the same page there, but basically, we are proposing units we have 93 units. Of those, 74, I believe, are 2-car, 2-bedroom units. So in a 2-car garage, we have 2 interior spaces, and I'm not sure if he's counting those or not, cause the comment doesn't make sense, but by code, you need to have 2 spaces per unit in this project. So we have 93 total units, and we have, I think, 74 of those that are 2-car garage, and the other 14 or so are 1-car garage. So obviously in the 2-car garage units, we have 2 spaces indoor, and we were suggesting that since we have an 18-foot wide driveway to every unit, and we stayed 20 feet from the face of the driveway back to the curb, you could put 2 cars in each driveway. So when they did the first table in their plans, they counted everything as the 2-car units have 2 spaces inside, 2 spaces outside. He's saying that he's worried that the 20 feet that we have for driveway length is the minimum he would ever accept, and he'd prefer 22. But he did say 20 works, so in our mind, and again, I can pull the plan but if you remember all these pocket parks that we have, if you take 2 more feet off of each unit, push it into the pocket park, and then do 2 feet on this side, push in the pocket park, we're just like 4 feet on all those pocket parks, and some of those are not that big.
Mhm.
And to me, the traffic volume in here is zilch. It's very, very minor, and all of these driveways come to a dead stub with the emergency access drives, so there's no through traffic anywhere. So when he's worried about kind of going around units, you're really not gonna be driving beyond units. And so what we looked at were, I think out of all the units that he was worried about the length of the driveways, we agreed to move 5 of them back from the street, no, I'm sorry, we moved 10 of those back from the street 5 more feet. So now we have more than enough parking for him on all those units. And we agreed that in the final construction drawings, every single unit will have at least 20 feet from the face of the driveway to the face of the curb, which he said was his minimum. And what we said we would do is then in the table where we count the spaces, we'll only count 1 parking space in every driveway. So that way you have 2 inside, you have another 93 outside, and you have 5 spaces on site, and you have the 14 singles. So when you do that and you count 1 single space outside, we're gonna have 70 surplus over the 2 per unit in the final table that you will see later this week.
Okay.
So I think it more than addresses his concern.
Okay.
But I still think somehow he was adding up, cause he kept saying you can't put 2 cars back to back, and we're like, no, they're gonna be next to each other. You have an 18-foot wide driveway to these doors, to these garage doors, so you definitely can put 2 cars next to each other.
Mhm.
I mean, a Toyota pickup is 18 feet long, and if you have 20 feet, I mean, a lot of these people aren't gonna be driving trucks, but some will, but, so I think there's more than enough room, but we'd rather not lose 4 feet in the parks, every park. You know, when you, especially if you're on a dead end, and you know, people aren't gonna be driving by your house all day, it's on a dead end, so.
Yeah, I think he might have visualized it differently as well.
So,
But-
But
the
when you
road-
think of parking spaces, I mean, most parking spaces for our table are 10 by 20 for 1 car.
yeah.
So, like you said,
Yeah,
I mean, it
cars
gives
6
you a
yeah.
like that 2-foot buffer.
So you can open the door.
Yeah.
But in your driveway, you can park along the grass and you step out, you know, what are those plenty
But
of
if you
room
have,
for
I mean, each of these driveways, every single one on the plan, for the 2-car
They're
units is
wide.
shown as 18 feet wide.
So
And
they're
that's
only
what they'll be
20
built
feet
as.
deep.
So if you have 2 cars at 6 feet wide, which is a big car, you have 4 feet between it to open the 2 doors and 2 feet on the outside before you even get to grass.
Right.
So.
And there's
it's-
not many cars that are 20 feet long either,
No,
so if they're
that's-
pulled right to the garage door, you've got 20 feet to work in. I think he was thinking about our parking lot space sizes
Yeah,
and.
yeah,
When I read the comment, I thought he was concerned that if I came over to play cards at Scott's house,
Mhm.
his car and his wife's car were in the driveway.
Yeah, no place to park.
If I pull in the driveway up to the garage door, is the back of my truck gonna be out in the street? That's what I was, there's enough room for 2 more cars to come pull up in front of the garage.
Correct.
And
which
not
is
be hanging in
occupied.
the
Yeah.
street.
And that
Yeah.
was, and he was just, that's what I took it
Yeah.
as, and.
Yeah, and I think that's what he was getting at, and there are some where if you're, any of the roads that are curved, where the driveway comes off, especially if it's an angle and comes off,
Right.
typically 1 leg of that driveway is more than 22,
Okay.
and the other one is less than 22, and I think he looked at those and said, well, then you can't do 2 cars. Well, technically, you couldn't have 2 cars in the building and 2 cars outside all the time, but I don't think that's gonna happen every day. So, but that's why I think if we just say there's at least 1 outside on every single driveway, you've got 93 of them, or 186 in the 2 cars and the others. When you do the math, you have 70 surplus spaces over the 2 per unit.
The second
Yeah.
guess has to have a
I mean, it's
small
really
car.
most critical in my opinion on the 1-car garage units,
Yeah,
'cause.
and those we put the extras next to some of those, so we have extra spaces right near a lot of those.
Good.
So, like I say, we just got this letter the other day, going through it, they're working on the drainage right now, and so we should have a response back to you in writing this week,
Right.
so.
But did you say you pushed some of them, you pushed everyone back?
10.
To give 20 feet?
Yeah, there were a couple of them where, like mostly on curves and a few spots where it was only 17 feet or something from the face of the driveway to the curb. So we said, well, let's just move those, we had a little more room in the back.
Okay.
So we moved, I think, 10 of the different units that he
But
identified.
that didn't affect any of the waivers we already granted for setback or?
No. No, we're actually moving them further into the pocket park, so it was taking land away from the pocket parks, but those units where they were on a bend in some cases might have only been 17 feet, so we said, well, we gotta move them back to, at least get to 20. So we will be at 20 feet everywhere minimum.
Hey, let me ask you two, I don't wanna get off track here, but sidewalks, we don't have sidewalks, they're not required, Jen?
Yeah, they are, you're supposed to comply with the sub rules and regs, which is a sidewalk on at least 1
So
side.
that's in the waiver list, one
So
of the waivers
that's
that we haven't
the-
gotten
I
through
was
yet.
gonna say, we didn't do that waiver.
We did
Not
not
yet.
do that waiver.
And the second one is, in the bylaw itself, as Scott mentioned earlier, there's not a community facility
Requirement?
requirement. We might wanna consider that. Community bylaw.
We had a discussion during villas too, and they actually designed one, and we're gonna install it, and then the Board of Trustees voted not to, cause they didn't wanna pay for the maintenance of it.
Well, it's always a kind of a sticky point, cause there is some cost associated with it, and whether it gets
Right.
used, we've seen that, well, I've seen that.
Mhm.
And I think I don't know what their hours are, but if people wanna gather someplace, the neighboring business that needs to have customers has
Yep.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Right,
Um,
the Pleasant Valley, that's where we had the abutters meeting.
And or in
That-
general,
that
and
might
then
be-
small spaces.
That might be able to accommodate a bigger
There
kind
you
of
go.
game.
Yeah.
As long as.
Yeah.
Kid out of the
Yeah.
locker
It's
room.
very different from
Yeah.
place to place, cause like at Orchard Apartments over on Church Street, they have a community room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rarely used unless maybe a resident has a birthday party,
Yeah.
you know, and they have their family in.
It's all up to
So
the.
that's not used very much, but my son lives on the West Coast in a big condominium development, and that space, it's stunning, but it's used all the time, and when it's not used, they have a property agent that kind of does marketing with the people that live there to rent it for revenue to offset the maintenance costs. So, I mean, only to people who are within, so like their, welcome party / rehearsal dinner was in that space, and it was amazing.
Oh, it depends on
And
the
they
use,
had to
yeah.
pay a reduced rate, cause they lived there, but they had to pay for that space, so, but they were noting, my son was noting that it's used quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
So I think it really depends kinda
Spot.
where you are, and it
Depends
was
on
just
the
interesting
whole
that the
facility.
villa's trustees, the board voted not to have John Leclerc go forward, because they were like, no, it's a maintenance nightmare, we don't wanna pay any more money.
Yeah, we've worked on a number of other projects where it seemed like getting closer to 200 units is a cutoff where you have to have one, you have enough demand, and a lot of it really is more, I think you're talking about more just a meeting room in general, it could be an open little barn structure like a meeting room, but when you get into bigger projects, then you wanna have the hairdresser in there, and you wanna have a little rec room, and you wanna have, you know, an office space that somebody could use with a computer, and so you start building all these bigger, you know, uses into it, and then you have to have the population, otherwise nobody's ever there, and it's just doesn't get used, and it's a lot of cost for nothing, so it's kind of supply and
Say
demand in the number of people.
200 units is.
Yeah,
what
closer
we've
to
seen.
150 and above, I would say, but.
So you wanna go through some of these waivers? Knock them off the list? Alright, the first one and the second one you can probably take together, they're super easy. And I did, you see, I gave you a copy of an email from Jeff Walsh. Where the waivers related to engineering, I asked him to weigh in, okay? So, and you can have a copy
I
of
have
it.
that.
You have it?
Yeah, I
Okay,
got
good.
that. That's his email.
Yep.
Yep.
So dated June 26th. So the first two, IVB2B, and these are from the subdivision rules and regs, and IVB2F, using polyethylene pipe with minimum of 2-foot cover instead of reinforced concrete pipe with 4 feet of cover. CPE pipe and 2 feet of cover is industry standard when you're using that kind of pipe. Reinforced concrete pipe is still used, but not as much as CPE pipe. And when you have reinforced concrete, you'll need a little bit more cover in terms of loading, so you don't crack or damage that. So, that's the first one that's easy, which Jeff has no issues with. And the second is using flared end sections instead of head walls. They're still maintaining the same flow attenuation, so, you know, instead of having the big head wall with some riprap, you've got the flared end section with the riprap. They're still doing the same flow attenuation, and that's really kind of the most important thing, that, you know, the flow's still coming out at a nice slow rate, you're not washing anything out, causing any erosion, and frankly, it's a less complicated structure to maintain down the line.
No head wall.
No head wall. So, those two sections, I would say, are really appropriate if you so choose to vote to waive together. Part of that would be that, you know, Graves, your consulting engineer, has said he's fine with those. And then the pipe change, they're still maintaining the same minimum slope and the same maximum flow rate, which are the two most important things when you're switching pipe types. And again, as I already said, on the head walls, you've got the same flow attenuation, in the calculations, or at least, a flow that's compliant with required stormwater regulations.
Sounds to me like good planning. Someone makes the motion and seconds it, we can get this off the agenda.
I make that motion that Jen just gave.
I'd love to second it.
All right, good. Great planning. Any further discussion?
So this is all gonna be privately maintained?
Yes. Yep.
So if there's issues with these items, they don't become town issues.
Correct.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 6-0-0.
All
Thank you,
right,
Bill.
the next one's pretty easy as well. That is 5E. As you know, when we're doing a standard house subdivision, you have the roadway right-of-way and you have all the lots. So you're required to get temporary construction easements along the front of all those lots because, those lots may be sold out at different times, et cetera. So you want an easement, a temporary construction easement, so you have the right to work onto the front side of those lots while you're doing the road and any, utilities, infrastructure stuff. And then you need various easements for different things. In this case, the whole property is owned by one association. It's being built by one party. There's no right-of-ways. There's no lots. So in this case, there's no reason to have all these separate legal easements. 'Cause you're not granting rights, from one party to another. It's all
It's one unit, yeah.
so a motion to waive, the requirement for easements, would be appropriate because you don't have right-of-ways, you don't have lots, and the whole project is really owned by one entity. The only thing,
Let's make have someone make the motion.
You
for
said
discussion.
5E, yeah, I had 5F on the, I think,
you have 5F, well, I'll make sure it's the appropriate section,
Okay.
whether it's 5E or 5F.
all right, let's check.
So,
I'll make a motion, we grant the waiver for section
5E or F,
5E or 5F,
Thank you.
requiring easements.
requiring easement designations on the plans.
Second.
For the second, so we can have a discussion. So this whole and I think it sounds like good planning. This whole thing is gonna get built at the same time.
No.
No, it'll
No.
probably be phased.
But basically, the difference is if you have a subdivision project, typical residential project, you bring in a right-of-way, like we're talking about some of those earlier projects, you have single lots.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna run a sewer line from house A over to the road and over to lot B, then I have to have an easement going through each lot where all the
Right,
utilities cross. In this particular case, we have one building lot that's 22.5 acres and another one's 35. So the sewer's gonna go from unit to unit to unit to unit with no easements whatsoever. So that it's a condominium, so we're gonna have a condominium document that says sewer can run anywhere through here as shown on the plan, water can run.
Right.
So we don't need individual easements like your typical project would have, so it's unique in that respect.
Cause all the land is commonly owned.
Right.
In a condominium, was one member of a condominium association, the unit owners don't own, they only own to the inside wall. They don't own anything outside their unit. It's
I'm
owned by
thinking-
the association,
Yeah.
which is what
Thinking about-
Jen's
Yeah, so
point
it's
was.
common utilities.
So it's different, because this
Yeah.
board entertains rooms full of people from Forest Edge. Rooms is filled, people from Pleasant Valley, because someone didn't do something. And
Mhm.
there's been a change in that, and the unit's been switched, so my view, we're not gonna be dealing with any, I just don't wanna,
No,
You're not-
you sit here saying, what were we thinking, when we said, yeah, go ahead, you'll have a
Yeah.
mob behind you.
Yeah, no, can you imagine on a multifamily project like this, trying to run a sewer easement from unit to unit to unit all over the place, then a water, then a gas, then
Yeah.
it'd be a spaghetti, so it just,
Okay.
it's common ownership and we will be maintaining all the utilities and roads.
Yeah, we don't, I'm president of my board, and, we take care of our own issues,
Yeah.
period. The
Yeah.
only time we really require, town assistance is what I call public safety.
Yeah.
We've had them in there a couple times in 20 years.
Yeah.
End of story. We plow,
Yep, it's
and
all
we
yours.
take care,
You-
we mow the lawn.
If it breaks, you fix it.
That's right.
Sounds like good planning if someone wants to, well, after we have the discussion, so I can call for a vote.
well, how about a motion or a second first?
Didn't we have a-
You made the motion.
Who did?
that?
5E or F?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, you did, I should have remembered that.
Second.
Memorable, apparently.
Wally seconded it.
Quite
Oh,
memorable.
thank you, Mike.
Then I made comments.
And now we're ready.
Now we're comfortable, so
Now
all
that Jen's
those,
memory has been reinforced.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Oakley dokley. Now we're gonna skip over the next one on my list for a minute and go to curbing. So, as you know, granite curbing is what's usually required. Of our costumes bituminous, can you just tell me at the street, are you doing granite where it meets Armsby Road, or are you proposing bituminous there as well?
Right now, we are proposing only Cape Cod style bituminous curbing.
Everywhere?
Yep.
Okay. We often do granite at intersections. I don't have a problem with bituminous everywhere as long as highway says bituminous is fine everywhere, so we can either hold action on that, ask Matt about the intersection with the Armsby, or you can just vote it as all bituminous unless highway calls for granite at the intersections.
What kind of curbing exists in Ormsby Road today?
Bituminous and,
No.
no, actually.
Gravel and weeds would be my guess.
They have
Not well, this is.
They have bituminous everywhere, but I do think they have granite at, I'm pretty sure they have granite at Boston. I don't know, honestly, I can't visualize on Armsby.
What do the villas have?
That's what we were just talking about.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think they have.
Can I just
granite.
ask, what is bitumen?
Bituminous is just that
Black
sloped pavement berm.
Blacktop.
Okay, yep.
Blacktop, yeah.
Cape
So
Cod.
you do three different kinds, granite, concrete, cast in place concrete,
If you
Yep,
plow,
yep.
if you
or you
plow,
do,
the granite curb
bituminous.
lets you know it's there.
Right.
Bituminous,
I know what you mean.
it ends up on the
Disappears.
lawn.
Yeah.
And
Cape-
you
well,
blame the
Cape-
previous guy.
The beauty we believe in Cape Cod is, I mean, they use it on the Mass Turnpike in a lot of areas, and they use it on a lot of state highways because plows go right up over it. Because it's basically a 12-inch wide triangle that comes up in the back, it's 3 inches wide. So plows will go over it, but it maintains the drainage in the street. If you use granite's extremely expensive to put in, and when it gets beat up, I mean, it takes a long time, it takes a beating, but it's not cheap to fix it either. And the typical bituminous, the vertical black, or black
It doesn't
bituminous
last.
curb gets beat up bad. So
Quickly. Over
that
Cape
on a
Cod
hot day.
to us
Yeah.
looks much more like a residential field than vertical granite curbing, but everybody's different and these are privately maintained, so
I'd like to see, to match whatever's at,
villas,
villas.
be consistent. Yeah, I know they have bituminous at the villas. I thought they have granite at the curbs, but I'm honestly not certain. So you can either table it, or we can just vote that motion to be.
Can we make, well, can Bill make, Bill's motion sounds to me like it's going to match what's at the
Well,
villas.
I think the villas has vertical vertical bituminous curbing, which is not what you would
It's
want.
like a little hump.
Let's
I
table it.
agree with that.
So let's table it.
Cape Cod would be much, much better.
You wanna
And
table?
the only question then is, if you want to have granite at the turns where you connect the Armsby, is that what you're saying, maybe at those locations?
That might be.
I don't think there's any, well, there's certainly none down on this section of Armsby today, but I
Yeah.
don't, I would guess they probably have granite coming into,
It's not what,
The villas, but I'm not
Boston
positive.
Road, I can tell you that.
Huh?
Where Osgood meets Boston Road, there's nothing.
No.
Way up at the other end, if you wanna talk about just that
I
street.
think that's actually granite on that radius.
Osgood Road,
Meets Boston.
It's Boston
I think
Road.
they've got it granite on that radius. I'm not positive, but I think they do. What do you wanna do? Just all Cape Cod and granite if the highway super wants it at the entrances?
good way to put
Yeah.
this.
I'll make a motion to grant, which one are we on?
It is VG1.
Wow.
Make a motion to grant the variance for VG1 curbing, that the project could have bituminous, Cape Cod berm, and if the highway superintendent requires it, granite at the intersection with Armsby Road.
Great,
Second.
thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Abstained?
Gotcha. All right, so, all right, so the next one is no sidewalks at all. So there are several sections related to sidewalks. VI1, VI4, 4A2K. So, no sidewalks are proposed. Discuss.
And so why is that? Cause you have trails for people to walk on, or what if someone
Yes.
wanted to walk down the street, they just walk down the street?
They can walk on the street, yeah, the traffic, again, the volume is extremely low, let me see if I have the, I mean, every unit has access essentially to the walking path. So rather than now putting sidewalks in addition to those, just really didn't make sense, let me see if I have.
Keep saying it's covered with ADA material, what is that mean?
So the trails are only ADA near Newell Park, the rest of it is,
American with Disabilities Act.
oh, I'm
okay.
sorry.
That-
Yeah, so you can roll a wheelchair, it's,
Oh, I see.
or if somebody's got a
harder surface
cane or
that
a,
can,
All right.
so it's accessible, if you're an over 55. Some people might actually get to a point where they hobble a little.
yeah, this will do the trick or not to explain, but this is, so this is 146 Armsby Road here. This is the north side. Here's the south side. So again, each of these units we tried to set up so they were near a pocket park or off of a pocket park or somewhere touching a pocket park. So essentially all of these units at the front right here walk out the back to a trail. And this trail comes from here, and then in this section you would be walking on the road, or the trail, actually on the final plan, comes right through here, through this green area, connects to here and connects to this trail. This is the accessible trail, and this is Newell Park, this whole area here. So this trail gets you along here all the way out the back and over to this pocket park. So all these units are on a trail, these units are on a trail, these units have access to the trail that comes back behind them and comes back down to here, and these guys have access to this emergency connection and a trail. And the same thing on this side, so all these units can walk right out the back to this trail, and all these units come out the top to the trail and walk around, and this trail connects through the pocket park to this trail, and this walks behind all these units. So technically, there's no sidewalk on any of these roads, but it's it's 50 feet to a trail anywhere.
And what is that trail made out of?
The trail in this section is the part that we've talked about that is accessible, and it's designed to be accessible. So if you had somebody in a wheelchair, there's 5 parking spaces back here. You could bring somebody back here and come along this trail and get up into this area. Those are the community gardens and the bocce court in here, and you've got ponds on both sides of you. And this is one of the drop-off areas. So that area is really designed to be accessible. These areas are down right next to the wetland area and in the woods. So we've called those out to be essentially a mowed trail. So you would go in there with a brush hog and probably make a 5-foot wide trail and try not to take any trees down and mow it to the ground, and then just keep mowing it regularly till you keep it open. So that whole trail, the trail up into the woods, and this is an earlier plan, but it doesn't show the trail in the back that comes up here. All of those are through the woods, so it's really designed to be a walking, jogging kind of path.
And the road's wide enough, what is it, 20
It's
foot road or
22
so?
feet is the
Yeah.
minimum width on the inside of curb, and the main drive over here is 24 feet wide. And all that was reviewed with both fire and police, and they were comfortable as long as we made these other turnarounds that they wanted to have, these emergency connections. So that's why there's no sidewalks.
So if you're walking from here to here, you can take a trail. If you're walking from house to house, you're saying the traffic is low flow enough that you're not worried about it.
Yeah,
I would think that's true, and people that are gonna come in here hopefully aren't gonna be terrorizing through here, because they live there,
Yeah.
right? And drive slowly.
And technically, again, everything is really dead end. I think one of the comments from Graves was on these driveways, the length of these driveways, and it's like, well, nobody can go past these units ever, so if you have a parking problem in your driveway, it's your people that are parked there, there's nobody that goes by you.
Right.
The same thing with these units up here, nobody can go past you anywhere, so that's why there's really no sidewalks, and that we were asking for a waiver, because the regs say, just put a sidewalk everywhere, just like in the subdivision regs, it's based on the subdivision regs, but this is really different.
I don't have any use for any sidewalks. The only night that you might want that you might have people going from house to house is on Halloween when the kids know you're there.
Yeah.
You might become a place they go to, but look at the Highlands, and they've got you beat. There's more candy up there anyways, the whole world goes up there. But sidewalks serve no purpose.
I agree 100%. Everybody talks about let's reduce pavement, and therefore you don't clear as much, you don't have as much drainage, and then they wanna put, you know, a 30-foot paved road and a 5-foot wide paved sidewalk next to it, it's like, how much pavement do you need?
In Worcester, if you don't shovel it, you pay a fine. Just 'cause,
So I'll make a motion, we grant the waiver.
Thank you.
Is this, 5I1?
5I1 and, a related waiver is 5I4.
5I4.
So do those, and then we'll do one that covers, there's a section that is, the cross-section shall be like that in the thingy. And so we'll do a separate motion for that, cause that relates to sidewalks and the bituminous curbs together.
And so I grant the waiver for those sections to allow the project to go forward without sidewalks, as there are scenic walking trails, low traffic patterns, dead end cul-de-sacs, little cul-de-sacs, and safe and slow traffic to utilize both the roads for walking and the trail system.
Thank you. Very good. Is that a second, Marion?
Second.
It's a second. Any further discussion?
If you were gonna put sidewalks, is there enough, how would you do it? Is there enough room in front of these units?
Yes. Every unit is, well, 95% of the units are 20 feet off the face of the curb. So again,
Are we talking a regular Cape Cod berm, planting strip, and how big is the sidewalk have to be? How big is
4 feet or 5 feet, depending on what is, you know, what the town requires. So you have, right now, from the face of the curb to the face of the house, we have 20 feet, that we wanna keep it all green, other than the driveway itself. So now if you take 5 feet of that strip out, all the way around the whole project, what's the benefit? People can.
I'm a proponent of sidewalks. I just think they open up neighborhoods, and I understand the concept that's in the back, but I think it promotes people moving and people out walking, and especially in something like people 55 years or older, I don't want, they shouldn't be on the road. Just because if we're talking potential, well, we're talking about wheelchairs, I don't think we'll see a lot of wheelchairs, but you might see people in walkers.
Well, again,
That's-
this is active adult housing, so you need one person over 55 in the whole house, which means everyone else is younger than 55, so hopefully people will be out walking everywhere for a lot of years after they get in here, and it won't be till they're in here for 40 years till they're in walkers and other things, so.
But
I
we
mean-
hope they can stay here, which is why we want.
Yeah, exactly.
We want
Then
an
you
age in
want them,
place.
yeah, you want them to be here and people.
And that's what you're thinking about.
But I
That's
think
the
it does
age
make a
in place.
difference in neighborhoods, and
Yeah.
I think there's just more people out moving around. But I understand the concept in the back. And it might be duplicitous to have them in both spots, but,
A vote? Ready?
I would just add too, I think, I agree, I don't think the sidewalks are needed because of the flow of cars.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily agree as much with the whole trail piece because I think there's people who either wanna walk on the trail or just walk on the sidewalk, gently around the neighborhood. But because there's so few houses and cars,
Yeah.
I don't, you know.
There's no through traffic on any of the roads, so I think that's a big part of it, that if you're walking into the next neighborhood, you're gonna walk probably right along the curb line and walk over to your neighbors, just because, you know, we have a sidewalk that's 22 feet wide.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained.
All right, and then you have the one that combines
Thank you, Billy, got me thinking again.
4A2K.
I have sidewalks figured out.
4A2K
Still
is
get shoveled.
everything in this roadway and sidewalk design that's not like the standard subdivision regulation. So no sidewalks, like Cape Cod berms. So you'd be voting a waiver to allow anything that deviates from the standard roadway cross-section in the subdivision rules and regs, which you've dealt with already in separate waivers, but this kind of pulls them all together. So it would be a motion for any deviations from the subdivision roadway design with respect to the roadway cross-section.
I don't understand that.
The last,
Speak up.
the roadway cross-section,
Yeah.
the roadway cross-section in the subdivision rules and regs shows street tree in the planting strip, then the sidewalk, then a 4 or 5 foot planting strip against a granite curb.
Oh, I see.
A road 26 feet wide minimum, and then blah, so there's a picture. And in our regs, unlike some towns, every road's supposed to be built like that. Anything that's not like that, you have to get a waiver from. So you've been granting some of the waivers
Okay.
from that in pieces, but this section 4A2K says the roadways will be like those shown in the road, appendix whatever. And so this waiver would be from anything that doesn't match that drawing in the bylaw, or in the sub-rules and regs.
I make a motion to grant the waiver for 4A 2K
Mhm.
Thank you.
For deviations.
for deviations and
From the
variances
standard.
have been granted, and all other typical details apply for
From the standard roadway cross-sections.
the roadway crossing.
Deviations from the standard roadway cross-section.
Correct.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mike. Any further discussions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Alright, now I'll jump back to the one that Jeff did comment on, unless you want us to just table that until your guys respond.
From his current letter?
Yeah,
On
from,
the drainage?
road subbase and excavation standards.
Oh, did he make a comment on?
Yeah, so basically,
I don't know if I saw that one.
waiver to, the Sutton Planning Board has strived to require durable subdivision streets, but so instead of doing what's shown in the rule, in the cross-section, 12 inches of gravel or blah, 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 your guys had requested, we'll just wing it with a guy on site, basically our soil guy.
Geotechnical engineer.
Geotechnical engineer.
Recommendation, yeah.
Right, and what Graves has said is he's not really comfortable with that. There's
Okay.
a standard in the sub-rules and regs. The current subdivision rules and regs require 18 inches of gravel, 1.5 binder, 1.5 top course. The Wedgewood plans call for 12 inches of gravel, and the requisite asphalt thickness of 1.5 per course. I recognize that the underlying soils at the site are predominantly sand or gravel. There are many sections of roads where filling will be required, and the source of the common fill below the gravel base won't necessarily be on-site gravel.
It will be though, that's where.
Well, that's,
the
therefore,
excavation.
I recommend the planning board follow the intent of the sub-rules and regs by either requiring 18-inch thick course of gravel or allowing the 12-inch thick course of gravel if the binder asphalt is increased from 1 to 2. Now, when you're doing the roadway construction, you're gonna be required to do certain inspections with Graves Engineering. So, if you just keep the 18 thick course of gravel, but you're showing Graves, 6 of it's the gravel on site, and it's the proper sieve, size, blah, 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 and compaction, then you're gonna meet it anyways. You're gonna meet the 18 inches. Cause you're still, even if you move it from here to here, you're still gonna need to meet the sieve test and the compaction and blah, blah, blah. So if you wanna just think about that and mull it over, we can just deal with that next time.
Yeah, is that an email, did I get?
That's why I was trying to hand it to you.
Oh, I thought you were giving me the other one that he talked about the, road, turning radiuses were all fine.
That was a while ago, right?
Yes.
That's relatively,
This
so
is-
we'll
So
table that one?
So I think this is an important point, because this is some of the only things that we need to inspect, I think, in terms of roadway construction. And it's a point of contention 3 years from now, when there's cracks, settling, potholes, and guess who comes? The president of the condo board comes right here and say, why did you let that
Nice
happen?
freaking
Therefore,
job.
so the roads are the primary thing to control for us.
Yeah, so your guy can talk to Jeff, or you can talk to Jeff, but we'll table that for now and let
Okay.
that be discussed.
Jeff doesn't often
That was pretty good.
tell us, it was a pretty clear message to me that, he's the guy that works for us, so I stand with him.
Right.
'Cause he
Oh,
understands it.
I'd rather get it right and just do it, yeah, I mean,
Right.
we have multiple reasons why we think 12 inches of gravel on this site will work, but let us talk with him, and if we can't convince him, then we'll.
Don't ask for the waiver.
Alright,
Fair
so
enough.
I only had one more thing to just kinda touch on tonight, and then we can do a motion to continue and decide when that will be. The current plan is for water, sewer, gas to be connected from the villas project over to this project. And we're currently pinning down for good, at least on the sewer, who will own the lines, own the new pump station in your project, and maybe even take over the villas and how that will work. But you're gonna need easements through the villas in any case, right?
We don't for sewer and water, but we would for gas.
Alright.
And so we have already met with the board of directors of the villas on 3 occasions, and we have drafted an agreement to do that with them.
Okay.
To correct the emergency access issue and to basically trade utilities. And
Okay.
that is in front of their board as we speak.
Okay.
So they will have to take a vote, and hopefully that would be in the near future.
Okay, good, cause if we have a vote, we'll have it in writing, and then it'll be nice and clean.
Yes.
And then, you don't think they put anything in writing on water and sewer, you just,
They will, yes, it will be in this agreement, it will be,
okay,
yes.
water, sewer, gas, all dealt with in
All
this.
of, every
Okay, good.
utility will be covered in this agreement.
Then there's nothing really, if we have that in writing that
Yeah.
they've agreed to that, then we don't have to worry about that.
And
I just wanna make sure we've got how the sewer, water, gas is getting from here to here, that we have something in writing.
And there is a commitment on the water supply.
Yeah, then we do have that in
Yep.
writing already.
Yep.
Okay.
Alright, so, the question is, so you just start with Concom this week, don't you?
Wednesday night.
So the first night of public hearing with Concom is Wednesday night. Lord only knows, there's a lot of wetlands here. And, so the question is, do we continue this for 2 weeks, or do we continue it to the, second meeting in August? Cause now we've cleaned up most details.
I have a preference. I don't
So
know if
state
I-
your preference and your reasoning.
Okay, I went through a list the other night, just trying to think about things that are still left that we haven't really touched on yet.
Okay, go.
One of them is the Public Shade Tree Act. We do have some trees in Armsby Road that in order to make the clearing, we're gonna have to, so we're gonna have to go to.
You gotta advertise
Matt.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's one thing I know we still need to do. We still have site plan review and the CCRC on this, but we gotta wait till we get through Concom and probably the same letter that we were just talking about.
Yeah, so that's site plan, Route 146,
Special permit.
and groundwater protection.
And groundwater protection and public shade tree. So, I didn't know if those are some things we could sort of start on, but I don't, I mean, at best, 2 weeks if we came back, potentially go through more waivers or address these grave comments, but there's probably not a lot of sense in that.
Right, and the only other thing is, you will have to ask for a waiver from earth removal, which is just filling out a form, it's not a notice.
You have a form?
And then, yes, and then you'll have to quantify what you think you'll be pulling off
Yep.
the site,
Yep,
that's
we have
just it,
that.
and where it will go.
Yep.
So, that one, you could probably take care of.
Should we do that in 2 weeks, just to get, and if we can get the shade tree, you have to advertise that as a public hearing. After
He
we-
has to, yes, the highway super has to advertise that, I think it's only 1 week though. And then a shade tree hearing is held in front of the trees. It's not held in the building. It's only held here because we do it with scenic roadway, but if it's not scenic road and public shade tree, the notice gets stuck on the trees, the trees get marked, and the hearing is held there.
And if they don't speak up, that's it, huh?
If they don't raise their hand, they're
And the tree
they're
warden
done.
is the officiant when it's just
Raise
public.
their
That is,
hand.
Matt from the
Matt,
Department
that's-
of Tree Warden.
Yeah.
So does he know the process, or should I just talk to him about it? and see
I'll
what-
send you the shade tree
Good.
app.
Okay.
And I'll send you the earth removal exemption app.
Okay.
And then you just need, and I'll give you Matt's contact info.
I've talked
And
to
then
him
if,
before,
if he has any issues with the advertising or whatever, he can
Okay.
solicit our
Okay.
help because he currently
If-
does not have a secretary.
If you go out to the second meeting, I think, you could be the 7:10, which probably won't be at 7:10. Do we have anyone on the first
No,
lot?
no, I was actually loving that date. Right now, that's my husband's birthday. His 60th birthday. And right now, there's on that agenda.
So then.
Now, the reality that nothing will stay on that agenda, I don't know. But-
But if you go to the first one, you've already got a 7:10, so you're gonna be.
Yeah,
able to
we're
make it.
at, I've
And
got.
that keeps happening to you.
Oh, we've only
No,
got a
and
7:10.
I don't mind staying late, I hate that you have to,
Okay.
every time I'm here, it's sort of like I'm the last thing.
Well,
that-
he would be number
You
two.
don't mind being here, listening to all the other stuff, then.
There's 352
I don't mind.
Manchog is scheduled for 7:10, he would be the next one, if you go to the 5th, if you think we can get something done on the 5th.
Well, I think we can, and at worst case, we could certainly cancel or push it, it just depends on,
September.
Yeah.
on your dating schedule, I guess.
Yeah, You can't cancel. Once we've got time and date certain, you
You'll
can't
regret
cancel.
turning 60. They don't get better.
So you guys decide, either we go to the 5th and he'll be the second in line behind Manchog Road.
Yeah, go.
Or
Do
you
it.
go to the 19th. and there
Fifth.
might be a shot in hell, we don't have to have that
You
meeting.
should not go to the 19th. I might be gone.
Okay, so we're gonna go, so motion to continue to the 5th at 7:30.
That's August fifth.
You're the second slot.
7:30.
I make a motion to extend this public hearing to August fifth at 7:30.
Second.
Thank you, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
You guys moved so fast on that. Wait a minute.
When
The
you hear this
second
one.
was Wally, right?
Yeah.
Make a motion, we close the meeting.
Stop it! Not Paul, Wally Baker.
All right, you'll
All
send me
right.
those two applications?
Who made the motion
Did
to?
I just speed
Gee,
that?
Leo.
Thank you very much, I
Scott made the
appreciate it.
motion.
All right, good night.
Night.
Moving
Thank you.
fast.
And then I had Scott and Wally
Again.
for adjourn.
Yep, yep.